All right. Hello. Sorry about that. I had to mute for 1 second. Let's see here. Flat Earth Friday started a little bit ago, so we're gonna pop in and see what's good, see what's going on. 116 people chilling in the spot. It's a pretty big Friday night. Very cool. Let's see what the boys are up to.
Interrupted me. You just didn't like anybody interrupting you. I told them to chill out till you finish your point. And now
Oh,
when the
I've
host is
never,
speaking,
I've never
now
told
when the host
anybody that.
is speaking, now when the host is speaking, you can't shut up. Now, why is that? Why when I'm just highlighting a critical difference, all of a sudden you can't close your mic? That's funny as hell. Now, if you're going to sit there and say that all the flat earthers who is deriving their information from all the failed predictions of the globe don't agree on the same thing,
Does
cool.
space exist?
Neither do you. You don't agree on gravity. You don't agree on the models of how everything functions. You have no unified theory of anything. So with all of your trillions of dollars, all of your resources, thousands of
What's the
years
theory
of
for the ether?
studies, and you're still interrupting because you're triggered right now. And you want
I'm
to
just
talk
calling
about
it out.
everybody. You're not calling anything out. What you're trying to do
A
is obfuscate
100%
from the point.
conspiracy
All
belief,
you're
not
doing is
theory.
obfuscating from the point. And the fact that you can't respect me as a host, even though I allow you up here on stage and I silence my crew to give you a voice to speak, shows what your intent is. Your intent isn't to find the truth and to find common ground. You're here to disrupt the conversation when you feel uneasy and uncomfortable when I highlight your contradictions. Now, hey, that don't got nothing to do with me, my guy. You should check your ego at the door when you step into Flat Earth Fridays. But when you make a claim against flat earthers and then it completely destroys your own position, it's probably going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Too bad. So, if you want to use that claim, be very careful because you globe earthers can't agree on anything till this day, my guy.
Are you are you
Till
done?
this day.
That's
Am I
facts.
done? Not really.
Facts.
Not really.
Facts.
Thank you for asking me. No, I'm not. When I asked you about the three body problem, you said it accounts for all masses. But when I look at this equation, how many M's is in this equation, Ralph?
Let's look this up real quick.
What you mean? You can't tell me? You
No,
provided
no,
it.
I'm not a cyborg like you. I don't have
So you don't know. So you're sharing
predictive engine.
information that you don't know that you can't interpret.
I'm just a layperson. I'm
Okay,
not a
yeah,
cyborg
that,
like
and
you, my
that's the
guy.
problem. That's probably why you're still a globe birther. So why don't you go ahead and do research before you share that information? But I'm gonna give you a couple seconds to tell us how many M's are in your equation or your formula. Then we could talk about how many bodies it's accounting for. How many? How many capitalized M's? How many lowercase M's are there in your formula, Ralph?
Or give me a couple seconds. I need to pull up the article. I just took a quick screenshot. Oh
It's
shit! I
right
just
there.
a
It's
second.
right in the
Destroy
jumbo.
Earth. Oh shit! I just
Hey,
seen an asteroid destroy Earth, dog. Oh shit!
I just want to say that GM, that big G, big M, that's not even an M. That's just GM.
Yeah, I actually want to go back to two things that I heard. If y'all done going to the hands, let me know. 'Cause there's two things I want to go back to. And I've been waiting.
Well, hold on 1 second, Phantom. I do got David that was right ahead of you. Um, and then after you will go to Red. I'm just giving Ralph a couple seconds here to get his lack of information together.
FYI, I keep a notepad nearby and I write shit down whenever I'm like in a long wait.
I'm just remembering the shit because it's so easy. At
Bro,
this point, it's
write
just
it
so
down,
fucking
bro.
easy, bro.
I mean, he just told us that this is all about conspiracy belief, and this guy can't even decipher his own formula, which means that that is literally a belief.
Hey,
Again,
he brought the
globe
evidence
earthers
like it.
never string multiple thoughts together, bro. It's like you accuse us of doing the same thing that you're doing in real time, and we're the only ones that can substantiate our claims. Now,
He
we
brought
don't
the
make as
evidence like what
many
it is.
positive claims as the globe earth does because we're smarter than that. We're like, hey, if we don't know something, that's okay. But when it's the globe earth making all the positive claims and then it continues to fail, and then people like you, Ralph, that keep sharing things that you don't understand, admittedly, it shows everyone in the audience, maybe I shouldn't follow that same methodology that Ralph is perpetuating to everybody because it seems like if I start doing that, I may be mistaken in front of every single person, acting like I know what I'm talking about while relying on chat motherfucking GPT. What?
Hey, but you could say the same thing about you guys.
Hell
There's-
no, we substantiate all
There's
our
all
claims.
kinds of flat earthers out there that believe all kinds of different things.
Okay,
Cool.
well,
But
here's
it's not.
something we don't do. Okay, we don't believe something and then have to look it up on the fly, ex post facto. See, he already believes it,
Oh.
but he has to go find the evidence for his own belief after the fact.
Oh,
Yeah, that's too
shit.
generalized. I've met all kinds of people that believe in flat Earth. And
Yeah,
it
but-
seems like there's all kinds of different theories, just like globe Earth.
Oh, can you give me
I
an
don't
example
disagree.
of someone coming up with their evidence ex post facto?
All the time.
Okay,
All
give
the
me an
time, I
example.
see it.
So then you should be neutral, Joe.
In this
Give me an
chat room.
example of something you've heard.
I think we all.
You're asking me if I've seen somebody look up information after they've been asked about? Yeah, millions of times.
Yeah, give me an example.
I'd give him
Of
that
other
one,
chats
though,
where I've
to be
seen
fair,
this?
to be honest with you.
You don't remember them specifically?
I've looked up
not
shit
even
after
one?
I've made a claim.
Out of millions?
Yeah, I don't. We're talking about
Yeah, that's
like
crazy, man. It's
like
almost like you're
trivia.
making it up.
See what I'm talking
We're talking about like
You-
trivia stuff.
Joe, you don't gotta like chime in just to like feel like hey, well, you guys do it too. Like if you're gonna make a claim and sit there and try to highlight a contradiction, then you should be able to substantiate that with your own like history in your own brain, right? This is something that you've been through. So if you say, oh, there's millions of this and that, and Indio says, well, give us one. Oh, I can't think of it, but I'm telling you, there's millions. It's like,
Yeah,
bro,
because
all
it's
you're
something
doing
very
is
general.
all you're doing is interrupting the conversation because you didn't add
No,
it.
no, he referred to me earlier, and I said, "Can I respond?" And then you chimed in. You cut me.
No, that's
And Ralph was actually saying something, and he mentioned me, and then that's when you cut in to challenge his point or whatever. But that's the reason why I interjected, because he had mentioned my name.
I just want everyone to, remember we've been doing this for 76 weeks, so we are well versed in this conversation. Sometimes we pick up on previous conversations. Newer listeners, we understand that not everybody can name the equation of the 3-body problem, 2-body problem off the top of their head. I could probably go to the gas station and I don't think the clerk will know what heliocentric means. We understand that this topic requires you to look into it more than once. It required you to remember what you were told and then look into it. And a lot of people don't necessarily do that. I've said this before. Sigrid said this before. We kind of believe that the number of people who believe in globe versus flat is smaller than the amount of people who don't care, who never look back into it, believe the standard taught method and just went on with their life. So definitely don't feel crazy if you don't know some of these equations, if you're not versed in some of these topics, because that's literally the first step. The first step is looking back into it. So shout out to you for sitting here, listening to us, looking up things on your own time, because that's how this conversation progresses now. And as you listen more, you hear things and it becomes like second nature to you. You're like, oh shit, I know about this. This don't match the orbital velocity that they said it should. Like, it becomes easier to remember, retain, and learn. So just for everybody to know that.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's a good point, because there's this simultaneous contradiction of you're dumb if you think the earth is flat, but you have to be some sort of genius to understand it's a globe, which is contradictory on its face, right? I don't know how many times I heard, well, I don't know that, I'm not a scientist. Nobody should begrudge themselves because they're ignorant as to some particular equation or nuance of the globe Earth. They don't actually teach it at any level. They really, in school, they teach you a very basic understanding of it. Just like gravity makes things into balls. There's a bunch of balls in space. They're all just orbiting each other, yada, yada, yada. But the devil is in the details. And it doesn't surprise me people don't look into the details, because it's kind of to be honest, it's a dry topic on some levels.
Yeah, like it is. I mean, me and Proud was talking about this the other day. Even Alan too. Shout out to Alan, just pulled up. What's up, my guy? We talked about this like back in school. Like some of this shit was just like boring as hell. Like we didn't find an interest until we started having these conversations. And then it's like, holy shit! Like this is kind of fun, like learning like a whole new perspective or interpretation of, the misguided history or misinterpreted results of different experiments and demonstrations. So it does take a little bit of effort and energy on your part to really, take the time out and understand what's actually being presented to you. And it's up to you to decipher, that proposal. It doesn't mean just blindly accept it because it's peer reviewed. Like, no.
1111.
Yeah, and I think what I was really trying to get across, don't be intimidated, because it's actually, this information is not beyond anybody. It really isn't. It just takes a little bit of effort. It's not like it's super complicated. It might seem that way at first because of the jargon, right? The words you might be unfamiliar with, and like maybe some of the concepts you're initially unfamiliar with, but they're not beyond comprehension, even for a layman.
Proud 1241 in Newfoundland says.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Good to see you, 40. Before we get to you though, let's hear from Red Hot. I think Red Hot was up here first.
Yeah, how's it going? I haven't spoken your space before, Sacred. See some friends in here, some people I follow, TM, Phantom, got Rufus, Mike, Oxpig. I'm still waiting for that follow back, homie. I like your content. Anyway, gravity. That's why all this talk about gravity. Like, I got to join this conversation. We brought up general relativity. Einstein's theory of gravity. I think I'm going to make some tweets.
Which wasn't even his own.
I'm going to make some tweets about this because when it comes down to, gravity provides a description at a cosmological scale and in the presence of massive objects, but it absolutely breaks down at the quantum level. So there's a number of things that come to mind that, kind of throw gravity out the door. Quantum gravity, that's a topic in itself. There's just a number of things where you get into this quantum world and gravity just doesn't make sense. It works, gravity barely works mathematically. Really, it's just theory, more unproven theories. I heard lots of unproven theories tonight. I was sitting here reading about this Holman transfer orbit, widely accepted. Widely accepted by who? Well, it turns out NASA. Big surprise, right? So then I'm sitting here trying to dive into this German engineer, Walter Holman, what his ties are. But anyway, it's just more unproven theories. I don't really have any questions or anything. I just I like your space's secret. And I think more attention could be paid to these details, these discrepancies, clashes between quantum physics and gravity, because there's numerous examples. Like I said, I'm going to make some tweets on this. I'm going to dive into this. But yeah, thanks for letting me talk.
I think that's funny. Widely accepted. What does that even mean? Like, honestly, scientifically, what does widely accepted mean?
I'm
Like,
sorry.
can you quantify that? Is there like an objective measure of widely accepted? Like, it's just
a red flag to me.
Yeah, it's just a useless propaganda-based qualifier to make something shady seem legitimate.
I've been talking to I'd like to add one more thing. I've been talking to semi-regularly, a particle physicist who now works in quantum AI. But this senior physicist used to work on a particle collider, and he's told me some pretty interesting things. And he, acknowledges the firmament, which is fascinating. He, showed me about, the local sun. And then on the other hand, he's like invested in the heliocentric model in ways. So it's like, he's really confusing to me, but I'm still I don't have all the answers. I don't see the curve. I don't know. You can call me a flat earther, but I can't tell you it's flat. I can't tell you either way. I ain't been around it. We can't even go to Antarctica. So who's to know? We're all just here trying to figure it out, right? I ain't got all the answers. Sacred got lots of answers, but nobody got all the answers, right? Like, that's why we here. if you had all the answers, I don't think you'd be here.
I might still pop up on y'all once in a while if I had all the answers. I might.
It's funny you mentioned that physicist, particle physicist. He has mentioned to me that part of it's just kind of gobbledygook BS talk. They're really doing one thing, the hand's doing one thing while, behind the back, while this hand's, showing you this.
Well, I think it's important to point out that this particle idea, it goes back to like Democritus, who's considered like the grandfather of modern science. And so they've had this philosophical idea of, and this is where the idea about outer space comes from too, incidentally. So atoms and void and out space and matter, particles of matter that are indivisible.
Sorry, did you just say grandfather of science?
Yes, the grandfather of science. Yes, that's what they call him.
Absolutely priceless. Sorry to interrupt you. And I don't got much time, Sacred, but I have to speak, my brother. I was listening to you last Friday in I guess, Platter 75. I was in a couple airports, so I couldn't speak. Sacred, one second, no, I'll get back to you one second. Sacred, and last Friday, there was someone come up and said something about measuring distance and stuff. And you mentioned yourself, Sacred, about flying in a plane while you're in planes and there's delays. Well, I'll explain to this. I left, and I don't give a fuck about doxing myself. I left Port Hardy, BC on a plane that was 20 minutes late. I landed in Vancouver and I was 30 minutes late. I got aboard a plane. I flew to Calgary 30 minutes late. I went from Calgary to Montreal. I was 30 minutes late. When I got on the plane in Montreal to fly to my home, where I am there now for a few more days in what you call Newfoundland, I was a half hour early. Can anyone explain that? And before anyone wants to try to explain that, because it's beyond fucking mathematicals, and we have to understand that people are using science that's written by man, and people are using math that is written by man. A question to the speakers, I guess. If the sun is in space, how come there's only sunshine or daylight on Earth and no sunshine in space? Oh, and before anybody goes, hold on, Sacred. 76 Flat Earth Fridays. Is it still 76-0? Are you still undefeated champion of what we call Flat Earth Fridays? And once again, before anybody wants to come at 40, I don't mind. I'm getting ready to do what I got to do. But I have something that I'm going to post up in the nest, Sacred. I have a few videos and pictures. I was 34,000 feet, a little over 300 miles an hour. I have videos and pictures and could not see perfect daylight, perfect, beautiful days, and could not see any curvature. So, to you Globers, how far up do we have to go to actually measure the circumference or curvature of Earth? Because I have video. I have a 6-minute fucking video just specially designed. I actually got a couple videos designed for Sacred in certain Fridays when certain people come up to speak. So I have multiple videos of beautiful daylight at 33,000 feet, and I can't see no curvature. And I can zoom in, I can zoom out, and I still see no fucking curvature. But hey, we all have to remember, and don't take this the wrong way, because even myself was brainwashed as a baby, and so on and so on. And I'm 50 fucking some odd years old now. So we're all indoctrinated, we're all brainwashed. Most people believe what's written in books. Most people believe what these so-called people on pedestals of scientists and these grandfathers of this and that. Do you people even believe that? Most of society today don't even know what fucking washroom to use, but yet people are still believing in fucking man-made written books. You're still believing that stuff that's been indoctrinated and lied to. And before anybody comes at me, please understand this. Take 1 second to understand this. And sorry to interrupt, Sacred. Just look at society or where you live in the last 3 years. You've been lied to, brainwashed, run through the fucking ringers just beyond comprehension. So before you continue with utter bullshit of man-made written science and man-made fucking mathematics, step outside your comfort zone, step outside your own box, and don't look up, because I hear a lot of people talking about gravity. What goes up must come down. Everybody's talking about space, but the truth lies beneath us. The truth is under our water. Wakey, wakey. Sorry to interrupt you, Sacred Ken, and proud, my sister. Keep up the fucking work. When you said 11:11, it was 12:41, and I'm in what you call Canada. So time travels, we travel. Wakey, wakey. Wanda hodium, Sidwen, Gasalalio. Peace, everyone. I love you all.
Appreciate that, 40.
You're the man, 40.
Love you, 40.
And just one correction. We are 76-0. It ain't just me, because it would be no me without y'all. So we 76-0. Straight streaking over here. You feel me? Level
Collective.
Hey, Sacred, when I go back up to Goswala First Nations, I'm going to personally get something made, hand carved out of a piece of cedar that we just installed a few totem poles. The one cedar tree that we have installed, I have a piece cut off, my brother, and it's approximately almost 1,000 years old. So when you get a chance, DM me something that you want pictured of your whatever you believe, whatever you want carved in this piece of cedar, and I will make sure it's delivered to your door free of charge. Because going 76-0 on Twitter Spaces, undefeated, taking on some great scientific people, great education people, knowledge people from all different backgrounds, all walks of life, and still the best host in Twitter Spaces, almost 3 years now. Very calm, cool, and collective, and gives everyone a chance, no matter your color, creed, religion, or your belief. You're the man, Sacred.
Or the sideboard. Appreciate you, 40. My God. Hey, and the next time you get on a plane, man, we're gonna have to get you some questions to press some of these pilots. We've been having some interesting conversations with some pilots lately. So yeah, definitely let me know the next time you tap in on one of them flights. We go ahead and get you somewhat
Well,
of
100%, brother. I'll tell you what. I'm flying out of Newfoundland Tuesday morning, so I'll be in touch, my brother.
All right, y'all heard it. So we got y'all DM me or tweet at me some questions that we should ask a pilot. I'll go ahead and curate it and we'll send it over to 40 and see if we can get some answers from these guys.
Absolutely, and I will record that, brother. 100% fucking record it, and it'd be loud and proud posted next Friday on Flat Earth Friday.
Let's get it. That's dope, man. Appreciate that. Indio, do you want to finish your thought before we go over to RB? I think we're talking about
I forgot what I was talking about after that. Awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah, my God. I think you were talking about
Democritus. Yeah. So sometimes I ask Albertus, I ask him, was space discovered or invented? You know, like, because, you know, it should be discovered, right? It shouldn't have been invented by somebody, but it was actually invented. It was invented in 325 BC, allegedly, by a guy named Democritus. Now, Democritus, like, he was the teacher of Epicurus, and there's a whole lineage of this metaphysical philosophy of the universe is divided into matter and void, right? In that matter is made of indivisible atoms. And the reason I was bringing it up is that previous speaker was talking about quantum field theory. And so, like, what we're finding out is that our idea is that everything is made of discrete particles of things is actually wrong. But we can't let go of it because of, well, it's not we, them. They can't let go of it is because they're invested in it, right? They have the sunk cost fallacy where they keep investing in this philosophical idea they've been latched onto for 3,000 years and they can't let it go despite the evidence. So a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually, you can send an electron through a double slit. A physical electron can go through a double split, a double slit like a photon can. Now, people understand the photon one, but how matter can do this, right? A matter wave, like, what is that, right?
GG.
But yeah, so the fact of the matter is everything is, it's more like energy than discrete chunks of matter. We experience them as, like, you know, solid objects, but at the level of the small, they're actually not solid objects. But they just can't let it go. They can't let go of that, like, that idea.
Straight facts, bro. There's electron interferometers. How does a particle produce an interference pattern? You know, as they say. Right. There was dude. Have you heard of the
reverse quantum eraser? Right. It's not the reverse quantum eraser. They did some experiment. Actually, I'm not going to talk about it until I actually find it. Where they did, like, neutron tunneling through a crystal, and neutrons are, like, heavier. They're way more, quote unquote, solid than an electron. So they, like, interfere neutrons in a barium titanate crystal and split them and interfere them again on like on a screen. It's really weird, man. It's like, yeah, I'll actually find that, man. It's pretty crazy.
Hey, Sacred. I was listening earlier. Sorry, I was listening earlier. Someone brought up how they originally tried to tell time. And please understand, and please don't take this wrong, but the time in seasons and calendars that you see today in society as a Western belief in a Western background. That's not original to the land we stand on, but that'll be a different topic. If anyone that wants to use a stick in the sun to tell time, you know that's 100% utter bullshit and lies, right? That people have been brainwashed. Because if you look at where the sun rises and the sun sets, for to get true accurate time using a sun, that stick that you put in the ground and the sun would have to be true north, because 12 o'clock is true north, 6 o'clock is what you call true south, and so on. 3 o'clock would be your east, and 9 o'clock would be your west. So if you were standing in any direction and you put a stick in any ground and you have the sun and wherever, even the highest point at high noon, I guess, would be right above you, the shadow of the stick would be coming from true north. So it would give you a false reading. But anyone with the right tone and the right word of mouth and the right softness and the right humble can brainwash a lot of people into believing that was true. Think about that. And anybody that wants to understand time, and I'll get back to this, and this is where a lot of people don't understand. Please don't take me wrong. But us First Nations people on what we call Turtle Island, we've never had time. Time was not on this land on what you call Canada, South America, America, and Alaska. So think about that. And even the other 7 countries that are over by First Nations people like Australia and all that, I won't go into it. But think about that. There was no time on this land we stand on. That representative time and this calendar that we live by came here on a boat.
Yeah, that's crazy. I appreciate that, 40. Yeah, man. A lot of things have definitely been misinterpreted. That's why we had these conversations. I appreciate you adding that in. And I think RB had his hand up. I wanted to make sure that we got a chance to hear from you, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was just listening, and I've had my hand up for a bit. It's my first time on here, so I don't really know the format. But just for the
Welcome,
last
bro.
couple
Welcome to
hours.
Flat Earth Fridays, my guy.
Yeah. Thank you. I've just been hearing a lot of things, from the Globe side in particular, and I don't say this as a backhanded slight or anything, but it does seem like they're it's kind of like elementary level, because I'm hearing a lot of appeals to things that are frankly non sequitur in this topic, like science, for example, when talking about measurements or experiments. Yeah, somebody asked for an experiment before, and then the guy was like, yeah, I'll give you a calculation for that. Calculations and math aren't experiments. He was talking about satellites a lot. uh, they kind of whistled right past what India was saying, how the whole heliocentric non-model is reliant on the radius value. So
I like
you
that
can't have
non-model.
orbital mechanics, right? You can't send things into orbit if you don't know the radius. I think we already kind of gave them an idea of how their supposed radius was alleged to have been discovered, right? Eratosthenes, but we can kind of throw that out, knowing that the Chinese did the same. And again, it's not an experiment, but they did the same kind of measurement that Eratosthenes did at the same time, except they didn't have the 3
A
assumptions.
demonstration. I don't
Right,
even know
right,
what to say.
right, demonstration. So, but they didn't have the same 3 assumptions that Eratosthenes did, right? Parallel sun rays, a near infinite sun, and a curved surface. So we could toss that out. I hate to give them, the answers to the, basically, or support for their own claims, but I didn't hear Al Biruni come up. And I think if we know how Al Biruni supposedly measured the radius by looking at the horizon, there's a big problem with that because, again, I don't want to give them their answers, but I think we all know the problem with the horizon that Al Biruni had. And then lastly, satellites, and they're talking about space and just hearing a lot of space. And I just, again, I think it's very important not to whistle past the fact that it's in violation of the second law of thermodynamics. So we have a high pressure atmos, so on Earth, right, 14.7 psi at ground level, but we're directly adjacent to a vacuum, right, a near perfect vacuum of 10 to the negative 17 torr. And the volume of that vacuum is something like 3.5 times 10 to the 80th meters cubed, which is an unfathomable volume. we're also uncontained, right? So the second law of thermodynamics would state that you can't have gas pressure like we do here on Earth without some sort of containment, right? Because entropy always increases unless intervened by a container. So they're saying we're in an open system that rockets and satellites can leave, but we're right next to a vacuum. So all of our air pressure on Earth should be dispersing into the available volume, which is, like I said, unfathomably large. It would exit the Earth right away. So I think that's important to bring up because we don't have to entertain anything about satellites or CGI pics or moon landings or anything like that until they could demonstrate how we can have, a gas pressure here on Earth in an open system. So, yep, thanks for unmuting me. Just again, I've had my hand up for a while, so there's been a lot, but I don't want to derail it too much. So, appreciate it, guys.
Nah, that was awesome, man. I appreciate it, and I'm glad you was able to find a space. Somebody retweeted it, or you follow somebody in here that got you in here, and I appreciate that value. And you're definitely right on a lot of the things that you said. There's a misunderstanding when it comes to what proof is and evidence is in regards to like just calculations. Like it's not a thing. You can literally make a formula or a calculation for anything, even if it doesn't comport with reality. So we know that to be false. It's also interesting, man. It's like I've never spoken to RB before. He said this is his first time here. And it's always like the flat earthers that are well versed in the history of the globe Earth. Y'all don't find that weird? That like we all know about the details of the things that are fallacious, that don't work, that fail. And it's the globe earthers that come up here that don't know the details, that don't know where it fails, and don't realize that the things that they are claiming as fact end up being the more support of the flat earth. I mean, listen, y'all start tapping in with us, especially with some of the things that we've been learning from Indio and Alan. Like y'all gonna stop referencing GPS for y'all globe earth proofs. Y'all, this is surface level stuff that we talk about. I mean, like flat earth 101. Like when we get into like the details and how some of these things are completely I don't even know what word it is, because someone had to know that there was a first order measurement of all these different things, or a first order interpretation, and then there was a correction that was installed, or a new interpretation that was implemented in order to keep like the framework intact. Like someone is making these decisions, right? So when we're adopting what they're giving us, in a fast food type of way, it's just like, okay, so if we're just going to accept this second order measurement or this second interpretation, or we're going to accept this second correction, then we're probably going to be misled down a path of globular spherosity through flat space. It's just like, bro, like this conversation gets so in depth. I know it gets a little bit technical for the audience, but just know, yo, it's not just some meme ass flirts anymore, bro. Like we talk about all different aspects and dynamics to this conversation, whether we talking about history, we talking about science, or we talking about spirituality. We attack this conversation from all different frames of references, no pun intended. So we can get to it no matter how y'all want to do it. At the end of the day, everyone experiences this realm as stationary, flat, and the things that they're giving us as fact is usually a direct refutation. It's so crazy, man. When y'all start pulling up and hearing how these conversations turn out, y'all really gonna learn a lot. And the fact that you're in here shows that you're at least interested in finding out the truth and open-minded. So I appreciate y'all pulling up. Thanks, RB. Hey, RB, real quick before we get to 40, did you talk about flat Earth to anybody during the holidays?
Yeah, my uncle's a surveyor, actually. Indio, I pinged you in the Discord yesterday. I wanted to see if you were available to chat with them about the reference ellipsoid and WGS 84.
What's your name in Discord?
Russ P.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I figured
I
it
didn't
was
even
that too.
recognize you, man. What's up, Russ?
What's up, dude? I thought he would have a little more pushback, but he was kind of just like, wow, I never thought of it that way, because he's been doing it for 40 years. He's an operating engineer. and he's less into the calculations and more into the I guess hand drawings and um, more of the earlier decades surveying. But yeah, I was talking to my uncle about it, and I wanted to touch on one last thing. I think it's the host in here. I think it's crypto keys, right?
Yes, sir.
It's.
I think you pinged a fake Indio, man, because I don't have anything from
Oh,
you.
did you? I hit you and AI up. Um, in I think it was voice text locker room.
Oh, okay, in there. Okay, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
I'll check that.
But yeah. Lastly, so Thanksgiving was good. I expected to get more pushback because you get cognitive dissonance from these people. I have to say one thing about the people in here. They're kind of honest. They're admitting they have beliefs, and I'm listening to Globe Believers all day, and basically sophistry. So it was refreshing to hear actually honest people in here today. It did seem like they were admitting their beliefs, but they were trying to drag us in with them. But like you said, we know their model better than they do. It's not a model, but I think the problem is we've been mind tricked into this false idea of what science is. And into believing that we have to appeal to these authorities to get answers when really, it's we could be our own authority. This stuff is not easy to verify. It's not hard to verify. It's our base axiom, right? So, the flat, motionless Earth is something that's self-evident to every single person that's ever walked this Earth. It's our own experience. So, you work off that axiom and you test the claims that the globe gives us. And lastly, I think we are giving Einstein a little too much credit when we call his general theory of relativity a theory. It's not a scientific theory. If anything, it's a colloquial theory. Scientific theories are the result of systematic experimentation and validation of hypothesis. He does not have a hypothesis. He has never done an experiment for the bending and warping of space-time. At best, it's a reification of a math formula. So I think we give him a little too much credit when we call it a theory. So it's not even that. It's just a story and a reification fallacy. Okay, thank you.
Fire, RB. Man, I'm telling you,
Well
man.
said.
We be knowing the shit, right? And that's funny. Me and Alan was talking about this the other day. Bro, like Einstein don't even have no citations. They be asking, yo, where's your citation, Sacred? You flirts, give me a citation. Like, bro, y'all adopt a whole framework that don't have no citations. Just like RB said, bro, like it's not even truly fitting the terminology of a scientific theory, bro. That was some sauce, man. I appreciate that. And we got to get your what you said was your uncle. We got to get him on Twitter Spaces, bro. I love to talk to him about his expertise and some of the things that he may be learning in the process during this conversation. There's the whole point at this space. Bring your own Glober because we wanted to hear some of the conversations that you guys may have had over the holidays, during the holidays. At the dinner, your flat dinner table. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely a dope experience that you shared with us. I appreciate that, bro. Go ahead, 40. And anybody else that want to come grab a mic, feel free. And we'll check to also see if there's any comments or questions after that. Because I think I got a DM asking about something particular. I don't know if Proud's seen anything. But yeah, go ahead, 40, and then we'll slide over to Spin.
Thank you, brother. That was awesome, RB. Spot on 100%. What's interesting, Sacred, approximately only 5% of Hiju Sitkimu, Mother Earth's water has been explored by man. Only 5%. Approximately, according to scientific records and stuff like this, only 4% of space has been researched or seen upon. So, in saying that, they spend trillions of dollars trying to get to space or trying to brainwash society, but yet they can't venture into waters. There isn't a water submarine or anything to go underwater to reach the bottom of lands they have not found underwater. Let's use what you call, well, most of the people believe that the Titanic sank off where I'm from. It wasn't the Titanic, but that's a whole different story. So think about it. The Olympic sits on what we call 13 nautical miles, so almost 15,000 feet to the sea bottom. There's only one certain submarine that can reach that depth. The United States military, nothing in any seaworthy machine can reach depths over 15,000 feet. So let's step out of our comfort zone. We see all kinds of these so-called rockets being launched in Florida by SpaceX that cost billions of dollars. They spend trillions going up, but they're afraid to go down. Isn't that very interesting? And think about it. 5%, and I'll say it one more time, approximately 5% of Giju Usitkamu, which is Mother Earth's water, has only been, I guess, researched by man's eyes. And approximately, according to scientific records, only 4% of what you call space. Isn't that very interesting? And I'm going to go back, way back, Sacred, and see if I can find in one of my old accounts that got suspended. We've had a lot of people ain't going to like this, but the man that walked on the moon, apparently, he was live on national TV one time and asked a question, and it's been out there, but they've been trying to take it away from social media. He was asked a question about walking on the moon, and he publicly stated from his own fucking mouth in an interview, hopefully mankind can do one day he could not. Think about that before anybody understands anything. And let's go to what you call this science. Look at what we call fossil fuel. The Rockefellers brainwashed people into oil. Everybody's scared that we're going to run out of oil. Oil is the second most privileged resource on what we call Giju Sitkamu. Oil and water replenish itself faster than it'll ever be depleted. So how much more brainwashing does society need to open their eyes? And you talk about mathematics and you talk about science. Well, where I'm born and raised on what you call Newfoundland, on our shores of this little island, there's 29,000 kilometers of shoreline. And on this little island on where I was born and raised, there's land that's never been walked on, still to this day by man or woman. There is land on every one of where we were born and raised. If you go outside your box and you go look, and they say they know everything about Earth, wherever Sacred may be born, wherever I guess TM or Sheepdog, there's places where we're from that's never been stepped on. So please explain to me how they say they have everything measured down to a fucking science. It's uncomprehension to anyone that can't see out of the box. Wakey, wakey. Phantom, go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, so I did want to touch back on something Ralph said earlier and something that they were talking about as well about the local sun. So Ralph, you were talking about the way that the moon reacts with the water and how it does the low and high tides and stuff like that because of gravity. But if that was true, if the moon had the force to move the entire ocean twice a day, it would totally have the power to suck any astronaut in space in low Earth orbit or outside of low Earth orbit straight to the moon. That's how much force that you're talking about. It would just, it's so much force, it's moving all the water, which weighs so much. But when a guy is spacewalking, it doesn't suck him to the moon. Nothing happens. So that just right there shows you that what you're saying is false. What you're saying is false about gravity interacting with the waves and the water and shit like that. Because it's not interacting with the astronauts in between Earth and the moon at all.
I understand what you're saying, but I mean, why are you quoting something that you don't even believe in to begin with? So I mean, at that part, I mean, you completely lose me. But to actually answer the question, how come the moon has more an effect on water than it does a person? Where there's a lot more water that the
Can you
gravity
prove that right now in an isolated environment? Show me the moon interacting with water right now.
Absolutely, I cannot prove that.
Can you show me? So then,
No, I
what you
cannot.
so then
He
you're
said
saying
no.
something you can't even prove at all. And this is supposed to be well-established science, but you can't. You just told me that you can't prove that. How is it well-established that you can't prove it?
Everything that you're saying, the same could be said for the ether. So it's like we're both in the same
Did
boat.
you ever hear me say the word ether? Never in your life.
No,
Not one time.
I am. What I'm saying is that's my counter. We both have you have to accept something you can't prove, which is the ether. I have to accept something.
Who says that we can't prove it, Ralph?
Who said I gotta
I
accept
gave
it?
you paperwork that we can validate it.
Okay, and
Who
what
said
the
I mentioned
paperwork? What
ether?
you
I
showed
All right,
showed
so
me
look,
some
hold on,
video
hold
of
on.
somebody else.
Hold on, because this is funny, right? So there's a little bit of history between TM and Ralph in regards to the ether, and this is funny now because the videos that Ralph was supposed to look into to get the questions, answers to his questions. I'm not sure if he looked at it.
Oh
However,
no, I looked at it, but it's just the
look at me
interpretation
getting
of someone
interrupted
else.
again. Look at that, I'm getting interrupted again. So, however, the creator of that content is actually on stage. So we have
Oh snap!
right here.
Perfect.
Because sometimes globe earthers can't do their own research; they need their handheld. Even if you
They
give
got
it
that
to
spoon
them
fed.
on a platter. But we're gonna make it
Hey,
super
Sacred.
easy for Ralph to get any answers to his questions for some things that he may not have considered. Which has been a lot that I realized lately.
Yo, Sacred, I shared a tweet. If you could put it on with the Jumbotron or whatever. So it's a list there, Ralph, of experiments that prove the ether through measurements and various things. If you have any questions about any of those experiments and how they relate to the proof of the ether and falsify the motion of the Earth, let me know and I'll explain them to you.
So that's a great offer. So Ralph, this is what we want you to do. Just go take a look at the names of some of those experiments, if you can. Come
No, I'm
back
looking at
and
them.
tell
I'm
us.
looking at them right now. In the interest of the room, to you not be waiting on my schedule. Why don't you go over the top two that you, Alan, think are the best representation and will help me understand what the ether is, while I start digging through all of them, because it does look like it's a very comprehensive list, and I want to give it the respect it deserves by going through it. But I'm not trying to hold up the room. So why don't you just break down
Yeah,
the
no,
top two?
we'll get to the breakdown. Trust me, my guy. We here all the way till stationary Saturdays, which is a few minutes from now. What I want you to do, because again, what you continue to do, and I'm really trying to help you out, Ralph, because I know you're interested in this topic. I know you know that we not fools over here. Otherwise, you wouldn't waste no time. Even though we are entertaining as hell, so we also cool as fuck too. Flat
That
earthers are
part.
way cooler
That
than
part.
globe earthers,
Oh,
right?
definitely
But
entertaining.
what I
Everything.
want you to get out of the habit of doing is saying things with your chest without fully understanding your claim, because that puts you in an awkward position. Had you approached this like, hey, from my understanding, the ether wasn't proven either, but do you guys have anything that can help me understand, or is there anything that you guys that it's a different way to approach what you're trying to say, because every time you make a claim we find out that your claim was misinterpreted, you didn't do the research on it, and it just makes you look bad. And I don't want you to look bad, bro, because you're really the only globe earther up here, so we appreciate your presence and your contribution. But you got to get out of saying things so definitively, because when you do that, we just had this whole conversation over the past couple of days, which we're probably going to end up doing a space on this in regards to LIGO. So when you say, hey, there's no anything proven this, that, and the third in regard to the ether, when LIGO is supposed to be an interferometer, and you gave some dimensions of LIGO, which we found out that weren't true, and we didn't even get to the mechanism behind it, and if LIGO is even something that we should be referencing in the first place.
Oh,
So
the only reason we were mentioning LIGO, or I was mentioning LIGO, was just on the construction of it. Hey, you're correct. I never even got to the fact that the purpose of LIGO was to detect gravitational waves, and they did, and they published those results. But you're right. The only reason I mentioned LIGO was strictly because of the construction. I never got into the equipment.
But even from the construction, you couldn't validate it.
I did, but you guys didn't want to accept it. And we
No, that's a piece of paper that says, curvature was taken into account, but there's no evidence that it was actually taken into account. And then I posted a video showing that during construction, curvature is not taken into account.
But those two things kind of touch base, and I'm glad that you brought that up. In that video of the construction you're talking about, that the gentleman said it was a little bit under a mile. that there was nothing to account for, that everything still was pretty much running parallel to the ground. So that pretty much got me thinking. You said the same thing about the LIGO construction. You're like, well, it's parallel to the ground. So we were both correct. Yes. The construction of the structure itself was parallel to the ground. Absolutely. The main difference that I was pointing out was actually in the mounting and the positions of the laser. And I did
No, Ralph, initially your main topic of discussion was about the construction of LIGO,
exactly,
like
yeah,
the facility. It wasn't about what they were testing in there, it was the construction.
correct, absolutely. That hasn't changed from what I'm saying. The only thing I'm saying is where the difference made from where it's similar to about the construction that you were talking about and posting about, and what I was trying to get into the specifics was about the laser itself, not about the results you get from it.
But
Not
you didn't get into
necessarily.
the specifics. I was trying to get into the specifics, and the last thing that you said to me, well, I'm reading it to you, and if you don't understand it, I can't help you. And I was like, well, bro, let's get into the specifics. You're saying
Okay,
wait,
and
you're
we can do
saying
that
that,
real
wait,
quick
you're
right now.
saying that, wait, that you're saying that
Okay,
there was an
I'll
equal
drop down. No
elevation.
problem.
You don't
No,
have
no,
to
no, no,
drop
no,
down.
no,
You
no,
don't
no,
have
no.
to drop down.
What I was saying, it was just super simple. The position of where the laser was mounted and the position of where the laser was received had to be different compared to the overall construction of LIGO. But that's where the main difference or the main point I was trying to make that's pretty much the main point that I was trying to make it. And it kind of does tie into what TM was saying about how if something is parallel to the ground, so if you need to build something that is 30 feet off the ground over the course of a mile, yes, you can measure it over the span of every 20, 30, 40 feet to verify that you are exactly 30 feet off the ground. The difference was in just the mounting of the laser from where it was emitted from to where it was received and the reason it had to be put in that position. So just to be very, very fast with it. So just assuming that the laser was put 1 foot off the ground, and mind you, this structure is 4 kilometers long. So if they put it 1 foot off the ground at point A and at point B where it was the receiving side, that side had to be 3 meters higher because of
See,
the
he's
curvature.
still saying that. See, now y'all heard him just say it
Oh
had to
no,
be
no, yeah,
3 meters high.
you are 1 meter, 3 feet. I'm sorry, it's
See,
three.
He
It's
doesn't
1 meter.
know
so
his
you,
own thing.
so
I don't.
exactly.
You know what?
So this is the,
So
hold on. I'm gonna let you finish, bro. But this is what I was talking to you about before, where you was like, oh, I was trying to get into the details, and you wasn't. Not only was you not getting into the details, you gave
I
us the
made a
wrong
mistake. I
details.
did.
Yes, you
I
did.
did.
Yes, you
It's
did.
1 meter. It's one meter.
And you
It's
really
not 3
believe,
meters.
and you really
But
believed
there
what
is
you were
still
saying,
the
and you
curvature.
really was
It
believing
doesn't
what you,
change the
and you
curvature.
really was believing what you were saying, that there, at one height it was 1 foot, and at the other height it was 3 meters. Now what you're saying is, even though in my mind that was correct in regards to the calculations, in regards to curvature, I now realize that that calculation was incorrect. So that was a blind belief by default. Now I have to update my position because I am adopting this framework, and it was not a 3 meter differential. It was a
At
1 foot.
the end of the
It
day,
was it
it's
was a
still
one.
an
It was a
example
one.
of
See, this is why I
curvature.
always got to mute, and then you want to sit there. Oh, I'm gonna just drop down. But you, every single time I'm trying to
It's
make a
an
point, you
example of
interject.
curvature.
You keep interjecting, and when I mute, then you want to cry and sit there and say, I'll drop down. Just let me finish my thought. I'll let you get your thought out, bro. It's that simple. You were giving us dimensions that you believed in, and you was telling us this is proof of curvature, only to find out that those calculations wasn't even correct. So it was a blind belief. Now you have to update your position. This is the same thing that's happening right now when Alan is presenting you these experiments with ether, and he's saying, hey, look at all these experiments. You said that this wasn't proven. Now you're being presented with a whole bunch of evidence of these demonstrations that occurred that you probably wasn't aware of. So again, I'm trying to get you to realize to approach the conversation without being so stuck in a positive claim and a blind belief. Approach it from a different perspective. But there's a reason why we're saying the things that we're saying. So when you're talking about this LIGO, you're saying it's a 1 foot now to 3 feet, which means it's only a 2 foot differential. And you're saying they had to do that. So when you make that claim, we asking you, well, what do you mean they had to? How is it an equal elevation and level, but then you're telling us that one side is shorter to the ground in elevation than the other? That doesn't seem like level to me. So that's a contradiction in itself. I'm still trying to understand that. And when I was trying to gain that understanding back in the other space when we had with Rachel, you wasn't able to articulate that. And when you did articulate that, you gave us the wrong dimensions. You kept screenshotting and posting a 3-meter differential while also screenshotting and posting an official excerpt from LIGO saying it was 1 meter. So you didn't even read what you were sending me and then went ahead and spread misinformation throughout the entire Twitter sphere. What we like to call it Twitter playing over here. So, bro, please change your approach. Adopt a new approach when you're having these conversations because you're just not doing yourself no justice. But go ahead. Let's hear what you got to say about some of this stuff.
Okay. It still shows curvature, but maybe not as intense over the course of the 4 miles. So to clarify, and using the example,
It's not 4 miles.
so no,
It's 4
4
kilometers.
kilometers. You're right.
How
You know
many
what? I'm
times are
sorry.
you gonna make this mistake, bro? This is your example. Go ahead.
Okay.
But where are they also showing curvature, other than stating that they're showing curvature?
So over the course of 4 kilometers, which is 8 miles, right? Point A is 1 foot off the
4
ground.
kilometers is
4
not
kilometers
8
is not 8
miles.
miles, dude.
4
What
kilometers
is
is
this
not 8 miles.
guy, bro? Okay, let's just chill. Let me get this full thought out. Ralph,
Okay.
4
It's like
kilometers
2.8
What
miles,
metric
is
dude.
system do you
not
use, Ralph? Maybe that's the problem
8
here.
miles, bro.
Okay. I'll just stick to the meters. How about that? I'm not going to try to convert anything. So over the course of 4 kilometers, right? Let's say point A is 1 meter off the ground. Point B will have to be 2 meters off the ground as far as where the laser is received. The reason for that, the reason for the difference in height is that is basically because of the curvature. Because the structure itself is consistently parallel to the ground. Let's call it the total construction of the tube of the outer tube is 15 feet all the way across from the beginning, running the span of the 4 kilometers. Inside the structure where the laser is mounted and being fired, if we want to use that word, like I said, it's 1 meter off the ground. The receiving side, point B, which is at the end of the 4 kilometers, is 2 meters off the ground. Because over the course of the structure, the amount of curvature that exists has to be accounted for. And to just factor it into a number, it is 3 meters. I'm sorry, it's 1 meter, which is 3 feet.
Bro,
Actually, 1 meter is 3 feet 3. You have to understand you have a construction iron worker here, and I'm going to talk about fucking benchmarks and laser beams. Are you ready? Sacred,
real quick, 40, real quick, before you go, because I don't want to lose this, because he said a bunch of numbers, bro. And it's just like, before you get into that, I just need to understand this because he's talking again like these are factual claims of how LIGO works. When does the 3 feet come into account if you're saying point A is 1 foot and point B is 2 feet?
I'm sorry, point A is 1 meter above the ground. Point B is 2 meters above the ground. So,
what? Bro,
yeah.
it's a 1 meter differential. Why are you talking about 2 meters? Now you're talking about 6 feet. I really think that both, bro. I really think that this is what you look. Whatever you smoking on, Ralph Blunts. First of all, whatever you smoking on, bro.
Point A is 1 meter off the ground. Okay, that's where I started from.
Why don't you just tell the truth? It's like built into the ground at the site, and then it's 1 meter of ground at 1 meter above ground at the other end. At 4 kilometers, it's 1 meter high, and at the base, it's built into the ground.
So at point A, let's say it's ground level, 0. There's
oh my
no
God!
height.
Finally,
at
dude.
Point B, it has
talking out your ass.
And at point B, it's 1 meter higher than point A. Why? Because of the curvature.
You know that you just gave us 4 different descriptions, 4 different concepts, 4 different frameworks.
Properly articulate.
And you haven't been able to do that, Ralph. And that's what my point is. So you're believing in something that you can't even articulate. This is what we're trying to say.
Hey, can I jump in as an innocent bystander here and just like give a quick observation that's really interesting?
I want to point out one thing though with his numbers. The drop at 4 kilometers is supposed to be 1.3 meters. So what happened to the other 1.5 feet?
So
So
Yeah.
so you're correct. Okay, so you kind of proved my point more. You're right. You know what? What I was quoting was just a generalized article. But if that's the actual number, then yeah, you're pretty much pretty verifying what I was originally trying to say.
No,
No,
it's
because you
not a
hit the side of the
verification.
tube, dude.
So Sheepdog really articulated it quite well. And actually, if you, so there's a right on LIGO's website. If you just look at the where it says curvature of the Earth, like and how they what they did to account for this, right? Because like I think there's a misunderstanding too, where you think that the end of the beam is higher or lower or something. That's not what's going on. Like when you understand like that's where you're disconnecting at, I think you'll understand why Sheepdog's interpretation was like adequately well said. So here we go. I'll just read it off. LIGO's arms are long enough that the curvature of the Earth was a factor in their construction. Over the 4 kilometers of each arm, the Earth curves away by nearly a meter. Precision concrete pouring of the path upon which the beam tube is installed was required to counteract the curvature to ensure that the laser beam leaves the corner station traveling in a straight line. It strikes the test mirror at the end of each arm and not a meter above it. So as Sheepdog said, they leveled out the ground to make it proportional of the alleged curvature, which there's no way that you could substantiate that claim, especially not if you I don't know if you've ever heard of the force the line um, experiment thing. The big critique, and that was going to be where they were forcing right angles at the bottom of the construction, where you could actually kind of substantiate it a lot better than LIGO per se, where they're just saying we poured the concrete at a special way that it accounted for the elevation differential. Um, so but anyway, the big critiques to that was that the air margin and all that, there's no way you could substantiate it. You couldn't tell the difference, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, cool, fair enough. But then to turn around to say that that the construction of this is evidence of curvature, it's like when they show up to a job site to like make something, like they level out that ground flat. Like there ain't gonna be no curvature at the end of the 4 miles of a construction of anything. The fact that they try and say that they did some uneven concrete pouring situation to account for this is ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if you know any people that pour concrete, but they level that shit out, my dude. Like, shout out
I
to
just poured over 100 foot. I
yeah,
just poured over 100 meters of concrete.
yeah.
I
This is
just poured over 100 meters of concrete, and concrete is poured 100% true level. That's what I was trying to interrupt when you want to go with numbers. You're
yep.
speaking to a fucking iron worker and a construction worker that's built cities and built buildings beyond most comprehension. I'll
They
say it one more time. When we dig and when we do our benchmark and when we do our foundations and our forms for our footings, they are 100% true level, 100% level to accuracy, because all building foundations must be 100% level for the building to be assembled. It's common fucking knowledge and common sense. And Phantom, I'm going back to you, my brother. Sorry, Sacred. You spoke about Gijumu Debguna said, the grandmother moon. And you spoke of, I don't know if you understand what grandmother moon is to our people of this land. She is female. She absorbs the water in low tide and releases the water in high tide. And when you see the moon in different shapes, it's the 28 days of her cycle. Same with Proud, my sister, on her moon time. She has a cycle every 28 days. I think it was many moons ago we talked about the sacred, about the sun and the moon. So if you don't think that grandmother moon does not absorb the water, because she absorbs the water in low tide to cleanse it and heal it, and she sends it back 12 hours later for high tide. She also controls our seasons. But a lot of people are getting confused, and this is where a lot of people get mad at 40, because they think that I'm trying to put them down or something. People don't understand the connection to Mother Earth because Western society will not understand it because of their indoctrination. But you have to understand.
I'll
Yes,
get down with grandmother
hold on,
moon way
Phantom.
before I get down with Ralph.
Okay, hold on, Phantom. But you said you need the proof of what you said, that grandmother moon absorbs water. Someone said that when she absorbed water, that she would suck in all different other things. That is incorrect. She's designed as a sponge to look after her little daughter, which we call Mother Earth, our mother. It's the grandmother. So once again, this is why you have high tides and low tides. You have to understand how we are connected to this land and to what we see. She absorbs water and releases water, and she cleanses it and cleans it on her cycle time. That's why you see different designs where I guess the Western would say quarter moon, eclipse, full moon, blah 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 blah. That's why you see this, because she's cleansing and cleaning the water. Any females in here that understands their connection of their moon time, that they cleanse themselves every 28 days, because in that 28-day cycle that lasts sometimes 7 days, our sacred life givers are very special and very powerful because they're cleansing their own healing bodies. And this is why a Western society don't understand certain things when it comes to our Mother Earth and what you see. So let's step out of the box. Everybody got to go back to the basics and understand brainwashed indoctrination. So yes, Phantom, the moon does control the water, and the moon is a mother. She is a grandmother. She is female, and the sun is male. So I'll ask the question one more time before my brother Sheepdog goes. If the sun is in space, how come there is only daylight on Earth and no daylight in space?
So just hold that question, Ralph. I'm gonna let Alan finish what he was saying, and then if you want to respond to any of that stuff, you could, and then I'll let Sheepdog go.
Oh, yo. Yeah, so I think we can kind of move on from the claim that like it's that the construction of LIGO, proves anything about the shape of where we live. But like if you were interested in what it's detecting, like I'd like to, if you're interested in moving on to that, like we could definitely hop on that.
The gravitational waves? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm open to it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
handle
so
that, Alan.
yeah, dude. So are you familiar with what covariance is?
Negative.
Okay, so covariance is a really, really important mathematical rule in the structure of relativity in physics, right? So in order for something to be covariant, basically what it says is like, let's say in this reference frame in the Earth, right, 4 plus 4 equals 4. If you're on the moon, does 4 plus 4 still equal 4, right? So like when you're transferring the laws of physics, that sort of thing, and things derived from the laws of physics, those things have to be what's called invariant under transformation. And if those laws of physics or things that are derived from them are invariant under transformation, that establishes good covariance, strong covariance, right? So that's a good sign that there's a good mathematical relationship between what you're describing with abstract mathematics and reality, right? And it doesn't necessarily even mean that it's true, but it's a good way. It's the established mainstream way of interpreting things, right? So if covariance is like hands down a very, very important thing, and especially moving forward, I highly recommend getting familiarized with it because it's not so well brought up, but it's like actually kind of the handbook really to everything, right? Because like once you understand covariance, you're like, and the relationships with transformations, you can kind of better understand like what's being talked about. But anyway, they proposed the gravitational wave as something that's derived from Einstein's field equation using the laws of physics, using c, right? So this thing is supposed to propagate at the speed of c, and this is to make it in alignment with Einstein's prediction, right? Like on the surface level narrative. So they present this derivation in a coordinate system where the magnetic permeability and the electric permittivity are set to 0, right, or set to a vacuum, right? So on the surface level, this gravitational wave, so-called, is propagating at the speed of light. But what Stephen Crothers found, and I can link you the papers and stuff to it, under transformations where the coordinate system isn't favored for that, the speed changes. So it's not an invariant transformation. It breaks covariance. It has no physical meaning towards anything. So like the fact that they, quote unquote, made a prediction out of this over, it's just not, it's not real. It has, it's not derived from anything meaningful. So it's like, it's super hypothetical. It's like the confirmation of it is a reification that none of us will ever be able to confirm. And even within their own paradigm, they refute it, and admit that there was, ambiguities to it, which we haven't even got to yet. But like just on the surface level of what a gravitational wave is and what it's derived from, and what they're looking for is like, a whole separate subject in and of itself. And then there's actually some additional stuff to the detections, which were done under situations where, like, they have countermeasures set up so that they don't get false positive detections. Somebody's echoing, I think. By the way, they get anyway to eliminate like false positive detections and errors and stuff like that, error tolerances. They have a system in place for that. But when they got their gravitational detection in 2013, the system was like halfway down for maintenance, and all their fail safes for that kind of stuff weren't in place. And they just went ahead and like said that they got this detection, and and ran with it. And then prior to that, though, a team was given access to their computer systems, and an injection of data was put into the system to fake a gravitational wave. And the team was under the impression that this was a real, like a real situation, and they were all super stoked. They were about to publish a paper on it. They scrutinized it to see, to find out if it was fake, and did the quote unquote scientific method and all that, and found that it was like, real, and they, super believed in it. And right before they went public with it, their team leader was like, hey, it was just a test run to see if, if you could tell the difference, and blah, blah, blah. And, so getting any sort of confirmation from these people is like, okay, man, like it's like it's like, if you want to believe in it, like, that's cool. But there's like a whole nother, side to it that's just kind of like, is that what they're really doing? Where once you kind of know the trick to it, you're like, it kind of demystifies it, right? But anyway, I said a lot of stuff, so you can feel free to say, to ask questions or whatever, man. Sorry about that. That was very long-winded, but I appreciate you listening.
I mean, I've heard a lot. I'm trying to chew through it. Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that the results they were able to come up with were unsubstantiated, or they were fabricated, right? Basically.
Well, that, and you wouldn't know the difference either way, and their own scientists wouldn't know the difference. And people were already given access to inject data. So like I guess we just have to believe that they just don't do that anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's already tainted at that level. And because these measurements are so precise, and you can't replicate it, it's only dependent on these agencies that are funded by billions of dollars. And they're claiming to measure something that fluctuates 1/1000th the width of a proton, which is like, ridiculous, right? So, and on top of that, once you start looking into the interferometry experiments,
slow that down, Alan. How much was the detection? 1/1000th of a what?
1/1000th the width of a proton is the difference in the fringe pattern that they're measuring.
How big is a proton?
Fuck, man, let me look it up real quick. How big is a proton? They're real tiny. How big is a proton?
Like, I'm not saying. I'm just asking for the people down there listening, because
smaller than a strand of hair.
Yeah, smaller than a mustard seed, right?
Yeah, the mass of a proton.
You gotta have a faith of a mustard seed, my gosh.
But
put it this way, sheepdog, it's that small, it would fit through a frog's ass, and that's the tightest thing in the world.
Hey,
yep.
Hey, I just want to say, I have the faith of a mustard seed. I don't have the faith of a proton, or 1/1000th of a proton, for that matter.
Yeah, but real quick to kind of top off the 1/1000th, once you start looking into the interferometry thing, you're gonna find that way less sensitive interferometers find a much bigger fluctuation, a daily fluctuation that matches sidereal time. And so like when you realize that that's a thing, and that they're claiming to account for something that's 1/1000th the width of a proton, it's like, how are they differentiating that like that sensitivity level? And there's that known fluctuation that they're not talking about, but it exists, and you'll learn about it. And it's like, that happens, so they're canceling that out, and then they're saying that on top of that they can differentiate something that's 1/1000th the width of the proton, and they attribute that to a specific event that happened 11 billion years ago or whatever it is. It's like cool, man, cool story, as they say, right? Like, at that level,
And
it's just
just
like,
to slow it down for everyone, Alan, so sidereal time, like when you say that it kind of aligns or matches with sidereal time.
Yep.
Would a way to say that would be like the rotation of the sky?
Yep.
Okay, so now we have a motion of the sky that has some type of correlation or relevance to this shift. So again, we talk about this spinning sky relative to a spinning Earth. All right, just keep that in mind. Go ahead, Alan.
No, absolutely, yeah. So this, the spin of one or the other or two of these things produces this fringe pattern, right? So like what they're saying is that, like, forget about what they normally measure with these interferometers. That's way bigger than 1/1000th the width of a proton. They've now isolated that, and they're now looking at 1/1000th the width of a proton to confirm an event that happened, 11 billion years ago, or 12 billion. I can't remember. It's so crazy, dude. And yeah.
Hey, just to show of hands down there in the listener audience, if y'all want to get your heart plus ready and give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. When you look up at the sky, do you see the sky moving? Do you see things in the sky moving, like the stars and the sun and the moon? Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if you see the sky moving. Anybody? Anybody? Got a few thumbs ups down there. Awesome, awesome. So we don't, as flat earthers, we don't deny that the sky is moving. We don't deny that the things in the sky are moving. So just wanted to kind of break that down a little bit for all y'all. When he's talking about sidereal rotation, that's talking about the sky moving. We agree, the sky is moving.
Big facts.
Peak, maximum, and minimum fluctuations at the equinox. Can you tell us about that?
I'm sorry, say that again, brother.
I remember you talking about the fringe shifts. They showed maximum and minimum. They reached maximum and minimum fluctuation at the equinoxes, I think.
Oh yeah, Dayton Miller. So after the Michelson-Morley experiment in 1887, Dayton Miller continued the work with Morley for a couple years, and then from like 1905 to 1930, using like various apparatuses, and actually he inherited the original Michelson apparatus too, so he got to do a bunch of experiments with that as well. So, but yeah, what he found though is that his data set matched sidereal times where the minimum and maximum dimensions of the readings would correspond to the equinoxes. So, what that means is like, on a stationary topographical plane, and I'll show a graphic for this in a minute where you can kind of see the analemma of it and get the visuals for it. But what that means is when the sun is in the northern hemisphere, it's moving slower, and when it goes to the southern hemisphere, it has to move faster to maintain that 15 degree per hour rotate, quote unquote rotation, right, for the globe or a plane, right. So either way, the sun in the sky has to be moving at 15 degrees per hour, or the Earth has to be rotating at 15 degrees per hour, right. So these fluctuations match that time explicitly, and this is using what's called an orthogonal interferometer, right? So like a right angle interferometer. So they when special relativity came along, they differentiated orthogonal interferometer setups and said that these can't detect the motion of the Earth through space, because all of this was originally about the Earth moving through space and the fringe patterns that was supposed to produce. But they never got the patterns that they to match what they needed to get that velocity. They could only measure the rotation of the sky. So that's what this whole thing is about. And yeah, so Miller made precise measurements using a orthogonal interferometer of the sky, that where the patterns reach their minimum and maximum dimensions when the sun's moving the fastest and the slowest, in the sky, right? Or that corresponds with that.
And just to recap on an interferometer, we've said that word a lot of times. Don't know if y'all have looked it up yourselves, but it's just two lasers or something that shoots electrons, and they're supposed to have like an interfering pattern where they cross into each other. And so that's what they're using, if I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken, or is that kind of like a very
slightly?
rudimentary?
Slightly. I'll have a diagram up here in a second.
Because I mean, it's very technical, very, very, very technical. But once you understand it, you're like, oh, that's what they use that for.
Don't they split the same electrons so that they have the same starting time?
Yep. Yes. Yep. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna post
So
the top.
basically, in a nutshell, it seems like the instrumentation that they were saying was used to detect gravitational waves. It wasn't that at all. As a matter of fact, it directly refutes that, and it seems to be acknowledging some type of an ether wind.
Yeah. So what I posted there is a topographical view of the Michelson-Morley apparatus. What they have there is a coherent beam. They didn't have lasers at this time, so this was just a coherent beam. I forget the wavelength, but it was some white light frequency. So they have a coherent beam that hits a prism and gets split, and it hits reflective mirrors, and it bounces back and forth. And then it gets recombined by hitting the prism again, and then it projects onto a what do you call it? Like a screen projection screen. It projects the interference pattern onto that. And what they were doing was they were taking like a basically like a yardstick kind of situation, and they were measuring the distances of the fringes like in between them. And from that, you can extract the velocity with an inverse proportional relationship and get actual speeds. And they had a predicted amount for the heliocentric model that would correspond to a fringe shift that would show 30 kilometers a second, right? You know, so 66.6 or whatever miles per hour. You know how they say that that's how fast the Earth is moving around the sun. So this was an attempt to measure that. So they got a measurement of like 5.5 to 6.5 kilometers a second. So their takeaway from this experiment in their own paper, they say, oh, 1 second, if I'm getting a phone call. Sorry about that. Yo, what's up?
So if y'all are following along, look up in the Jumbotron and you'll see that cross-section pattern I was talking about. Like there's an interference that he was like it interferes, and then that piece cancels out, and then when it recombines, whatever recombines at the end, they notice that it's not the same as when it started. I'm probably still screwing that up. But hey, I wanted to, since he's stepped away real quick, wanted to go back and read something. So the devil is in the details of the wording, right? So this is how they get you, and you always glance over it. This is a big deal when I was reading the Bible for the very first time, like from a faith base. I had this thing that I used to tell myself that like, in order when I'm reading the Bible, I have to understand every word that I'm reading. So I have to read every single word, because like, let's face it, when we're reading, sometimes we glance over words and we just take up the concept of what the article is trying to tell us and we move forward. But I didn't want that. I wanted to absorb every single word. And so it taught me later on when I was coming into other truths that the devil was in the details, the devil was in the words. And I wanted to like go back over, if you go back up to the third one from the left where Alan posted the LIGO article from their website, at the part where he has it circled, it says LIGO's arms are long enough that the curvature of the Earth was a factor in their construction. Over the 4-kilometer length of each arm, so we know that the length is 4 kilometers long, the Earth curves away by nearly a meter. Okay, why not nearly a meter, or why nearly a meter, not more than a meter? Because the Earth's curvature, if you look at the thing, I did the math, is like 1.26 meters over 4 kilometers. If you don't include refraction, which if you have a material object, it's not going to include refraction because it's not light, it's material. To me, that tells me that the length of elevation isn't even a full meter. It's nearly a meter, not quite a meter. So devil in the words, little wordplay there. They get you to look at it like, oh yeah, it works out. They're the authority. Cool. I should listen to them. They're lying to you right there, right off the bat. That's all I wanted to say.
The sheepdog, that would have a lot to do with location, 100%. And like I said, it don't matter what size the building, the home, the shed, whatever you're doing, either your deck, your walkways, your pathways, your drive, it's level. That's why it's sea level, not sea curve. It's beyond comprehension of most of society.
But I wanted to share this with you, 40. So LIGO, the arm itself is not laid on concrete. It's like on like a V frame all along the way, trying to maintain its solidarity in horizontal. So like the base portion, right? Like the little like 1,000, 1,500 square foot building, whatever it is, I don't know the size of it. That's level on concrete. And then they have these tubes that jut out of it where the laser is shot down the tubes. That's not sitting on concrete. That's just sitting on whatever. Or maybe it's like sitting on concrete, but the air underneath it is not sitting on concrete. Like it's probably bolted into the concrete. The concrete itself is level, but like it's supposed to, as it gets further and further away, the ground's supposed to dip further and further down.
Yes, my brother. But like I said earlier in my conversation, I mentioned the word benchmark. When we're setting up, we use lasers to do our foundations and our footings, and we take two benchmarks. We take the lowest and we take the highest. And then that footing or foundation is built 100% true level from point to point. It all depends on location of elevation. It's rise over run. But I have something else to the people in the space. I'm still waiting to answer that one question, Sager. We'll get back to that. Someone spoke earlier about, I guess, measuring speed miles per hour. Isn't it interesting? On land, it's miles per hour. But when you're in a boat, it's nautical miles. So if you're going 1 knot in a boat, converted to road-wise, that'd be 1.8 miles per hour. So you're going faster on water on 1 nautical mile than you are doing 1 kilometer an hour on what you call Earth. Interesting, isn't it? But yet, when you're on a boat, it seems you're going very slow. When you're on a car, you're going extremely fast. Interesting.
Hey, 40, but doesn't that go back to nautical miles when there was sailing days, and the only way to pretty much gauge your speed was to have a length of rope that had knots, tied every, measured space. They would throw it overboard and basically count over a given period of time how many knots would run through their hands, and that's how they were able to gauge their speed and where we got the terminology from.
Absolutely, that's where they got the term nautical miles. But let's step out of that box. Why wasn't that same kind of science of man science and man mathematical used on what you call land? Why is it different? Why is it different mathematical system and a different
I think
different?
I think the very boring answer, the very mundane, would just probably be the ease or the simplest item to use. Because if you're trying to measure how fast you're going in water, you're going to use something. But if you're going to use how fast you're going on land, it's possible you're going to use something else. I mean, they've had the wheels since since we've had chariots and hoist on carriages. They only really started measuring speed once we started introducing engineering and mechanics to it. And then when they did, they were measuring speed by measuring the tires rotation, or if not, they were measuring the output shaft or the transmission, or any number of those things. So I'm thinking just maybe possibly the boring reason is that it was just the most simplest tool to use at that given time.
I understand that, but I don't think you're. Is that Ralph or Alan? I'm not thinking you're understanding. One, if you're in a boat and you're traveling 1 nautical mile an hour, it's the equivalent of traveling in a vehicle 1.8 miles per hour. Think about that. So you're going zero point 0.8 miles an hour faster on water than land. So you're going a farther distance in the same amount of what you call time.
I just think that just boils down to how they were able to convert distance on land versus distance on water. I personally don't think it was any nefarious reason more than just different technologies or different ways of measuring developing over different periods of time. I mean, because we can agree that sailing.
I'm going to interrupt you there. Sorry,
Go ahead.
Ralph. I'm going to interrupt you because you're going about talking about measurements. So just coming from just a common person, wouldn't 1 mile on land be the same as 1 mile on on water. So if I'm using a measuring tape, hold on, if I'm using a measuring tape on land and I'm measuring 20 feet, and then I swim out and I'm on water myself and I use that measuring tape, it's still 20 feet.
Yes, you are 100% correct. I was only referring to when they were measuring it and when they had to do the conversions over. But distance is distance. I agree with you. It's irrelevant what you're measuring. A foot of water is still a foot. It doesn't matter if I'm measuring a foot of dirt. It's still a foot. I agree with you on that end. I think it's just when they were having to convert the distances or the measurements that we started seeing that discrepancy come up.
I got you. So it's a clerical error pretty much because whoever did the math on water and then they went to land, I guess maybe they had probably sobered up a little bit and did the same math and they were farther ahead on water than they were on land. No wonder they call us drunken newbies. It's pretty interesting, but sometimes you got to bring laughter to the space because it's full of great people. But that's I like to open eyes sometimes. I'm not the highest educated person in the world, and I'll bring a joke to the space sacred. I have grade 9 education because I passed grade 3 3 times. So we have to take in consideration that maybe some people are not what you call highly educated in your book smarts. But I've been told by multiple people many times that I do have an MLS, a master's in life science. So there is some people that would love to sit down with certain individuals, and because we must remember, most times it's the student that teaches the teacher. Because most teachers have been indoctrinated by theory written by man in a book. But same thing when we get the engineered drawings or seismic drawings when we're building buildings, they can put it on paper with their drawings and their scientific matter. That doesn't mean we can build it on the ground hands on. And that's why us certain individuals fight and row with these scientific big people that are up in these high fancy fucking jobs and in their office that's never seen a fucking shovel or a dirt. That's the difference. And that's why we're here. Because we all come from different walks of life, all different backgrounds, all colors and creed. But at the end of the day, we're all equal and we're all one. Keep up the great work, guys. Sorry to interrupt, Sacred.
Nah, good
Hey,
stuff, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I was just gonna say if anyone
Okay, I got
thinks
one more
what
question. Hey, I'm gonna interrupt. I'm gonna bring some laughter before I go because I got to start packing. I got a lot of shit to fucking do. And sorry to interrupt. This is one, and I'm going to listener. This is gonna crack up the space. A couple of people heard me say this. Why wasn't Jesus born in Newfoundland? Anybody know why Jesus wasn't born in Newfoundland? I guess not. I'll tell you the answer. Jesus wasn't born in Newfoundland because they couldn't find 3 wise men or a virgin.
Yo, 40 turd, bro.
yeah,
Laughter is the best medicine, my brothers and sisters, and it's absolutely free. And we all forget about the inner child in ourselves. Love you all, man. One to hold you, Sidwen, Gasalalio. Peace, everyone. I love you all. I'm going to listener. I have to pack up my shit. It's time to go from one rock to the next. Love you guys.
We appreciate you, Papa Bear.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate you, 40. Go ahead, Ken.
well, they were just talking about nautical miles and miles, and I heard the question of where nautical miles come from. Basically, any celestial object that you follow, you measure it in an arc, and we measure it in degrees, and those degrees can be broken down into 1 degree is 60 minutes, 1 minute is 60 seconds, but one minute of arc movement is what determines a nautical mile. So if I have something directly overhead and I measure it, the elevation angle, and it's 90 degrees, and I wait just a little bit and I measure it again, it's going to be 89 degrees and 59 minutes. Now, the point where that same celestial body is now 90 degrees to will be exactly 1 nautical mile from you. That's what they call a nautical mile. There might be another way it was determined. I've never found it. I just know that a nautical mile is how far a celestial body is from you in 1 arc minute of movement. So that's where a nautical mile comes from.
Well said. I put a graphic up to supplement what you said.
So I think oh, Ralph got his hand up good because I just had a question too. So Ralph, so you've been tweeting, and you know what I'm saying, you've made the claim to basically that a lot of flat earthers or whatever the case is have these conspiracy beliefs. But now, like you see that a lot of the interpretation that you may have had not have been correctly or extremely accurate. Then some of the things that we brought up, there's demonstrations and experiments. Do you think that it's still conspiracy belief with all of this, evidence, with all of the substantiation that's going on right now? Like, is that still how you interpret everything that we're bringing to the table here? And then you could go ahead and speak on whatever you want to talk about. Ralph Blunts.
Oh shit, my bad. I was switching headsets. Can you repeat that?
Oh yes, I was just saying. So I heard you say earlier about conspiracy beliefs. I see you tweeted a couple of times. It's more about conspiracy beliefs. But I was saying, we're bringing a lot of evidence, a lot of demonstrations, a lot of experiments that support the things that we're saying. And a lot of the things that you have brought to the table had a little bit of misguided information or misinterpretation. To me, it seems like that would be more belief on your end. But just in regards to what you were saying about some of the things that we're talking about, over the course of this last, I don't know what, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, do you still take that position that the things that we talk about is still more conspiracy beliefs, or do you think that it's a little bit more substantiated than you had considered?
Yeah, you guys are definitely more than I consider. So I have to reclassify it. I'm not trying to, be a fucking authority here, but my personal opinion, I have to reclassify it to a theory instead of a belief. Just because you guys are poking a lot of holes and trying to open a lot of doors. What I did actually like was Alan's post. Um, what is it? It was Does the Cosmic Ether Exist? 2014, I think study or peer review. I was reading the scientific journal of it. I really did appreciate that. If it was a belief system, I doubt I would have been provided with as much information. So I do appreciate that. But what I do like about it is that Cosmic Ether reads a lot like, and I'm hoping Alan can jump back in. Reads a lot like what you figured have heard, where people refer to dark energy, dark matter. Because I'm reading, what it is, how they're describing it, calling it the cosmic ether. I see no difference in the cosmic ether, quote unquote, and dark energy, dark matter, quote unquote, because they both kind of seem to be talking about the same thing. Cosmic ether was introduced.
Exactly.
Bet. Okay.
Cosmic ether was introduced as an alternative to what science at that time thought was empty space. And I think I have heard it in this room before, or if not a space like this, where you guys talk about the electrostatic force, and that being what we interpret as gravity. So, electric static force, cosmic ether, and dark energy all pretty much sound like the exact same thing. I mean, I'm reading it. I'm just from like my very layman's interpretation of it. It
Yeah,
seems like it's talking about the same thing, just using different terminology.
for
But then
sure.
that kind of takes me to another point. So then this is pretty much verifying space at the end of it, because it's a article that's trying to talk about uh, either the electrostatic force, cosmic energy, cosmic ether. I apologize, cosmic ether, or dark energy. but all these things are happening and inhabiting space. So it's, you know, I want to say it kind of vibes more back with what Phantom hypothesis is or theory is, that we actually inhabit a hypercube. So this kind of seems to give a little bit more credence to that, just because it does allow for space, or what we call space. And I'll kick it back to Alan.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a very generous interpretation. To and I'll show you, or I'll give you an example for the distinction about the mechanism of what the ether is versus the conceptual reification of dark energy and dark matter. So there's we'll take satellites for example and how they work. So I got some documents here and I'll provide them to you. So these are called the ICD documents. These are the interface documents, the interface control documents for GPS, right? So this is how GPS is programmed, how it functions. These documents are released by the government. They're like, official, blah blah blah, that kind of thing, right? So
Was this on your GPS tab? Because I was literally looking at the side of that left side of that screen, uh, trying to figure out how to ask you for some of that information. But yeah, I appreciate you talking about it. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So there's let's see, I'll pull it up here. The way that they have this worded here, and I'll explain like what it means. It says, and this is from the ICD document 1994, page 98. So the Doppler shift of the frequency of the received carrier signal is proportional to the relative velocity of the receiver with respect to the satellite alongside the line of sight along the line of sight from the receiver to the satellite. So what they're saying there is that there's a frequency shift, or that the speed of light is changing proportional to the velocity of the observer. And the only possible mechanism for that would be as if there is an etheric background and all motion is relative to that. Now, and another way to think about that would be the way that GPS functions is it uses a range measurement equation. So it's just basically taking a snapshot of when the signal was sent and the coordinates of the location and the time differential from when the signal was received versus what they have for the value for the speed of light, right? And what they find is that there's a variance that's proportional to the velocity of the observer. So that exact same equation and function is how sonar works in submarines, right? The only difference is instead of using the letter C, they use the letter A for the speed of sound. So the variance is relative to the receiver's motion through the water, right? Like to the medium, right? So the only possible way that it could be that it could vary, in that for that mechanism is through the ether. So throughout history, there's various interpretations of ether frameworks to explain different phenomenon, and then those fail at different, explaining different other or various other phenomenon, because the way that they interpret the ether is through that it's rigid and stationary, and that the Earth is moving through it, right? So there's a big problem there because these proportional velocity measurements through through light, through interferometry, through GPS and stuff would be able to fully measure that orbital velocity if it existed, and they don't get it. So they resorted to saying that there is no ether, all motion is relative. They redefined all of physics after Michelson-Morley. Like it gets crazy out there. But so to give you the direct distinction of an actual physical mechanic and how it relates to current technology, that doesn't require any relativistic calculations or anything crazy like that. It just works right out of the gate. And then in modern documentation, so like in 2000, I think I have one from 2012, they changed it to a diagram and they show you this output. So from the output on the diagram, they just show you that they have this magical velocity correction that comes out of their diagram. And it's like, where'd you get that velocity correction? And it's like, well, funny story. So that range measurement equation is used in a specific reference frame where the distance derived is accurate down to the millimeter with the first measurement. So, there's really no way around it other than hiding it through transformations. So they transform out of that first reference frame to the ECEF reference frame, and then during that transformation, the remainder or addition to C, that variance, right, is the proportional velocity correction that they just magically have on the output. So it's just, and I'll send screenshots for that and where you can get the documents to them.
Okay, all right. So definitely satellites do work. I mean, so that is well, it seems that's pretty much a fact now. So my next question would be, or what would, you know, the next the next line of thinking would be, where are the satellites actually, like, I don't want to use the word space,
Yeah.
but what location are they inhabiting to be able to perform their functions as satellites? Are they, I mean, it's like, what's the mechanism for them to be where they are at and to stay where they need to be at?
Yeah, for sure. So, in terms of verifying their distances from ground locations using the data that's given to them, once you understand like the transformations of the coordinate systems and stuff on the back end of it, you're not really going to be able to distinguish the distance in terms of like what you're going to get from that, like on their end, because it's going to match the globular coordinate system on the other end of it, and they're going to get there through corrections that that falsify relativity theory, and then they're just not going to tell anyone. So like it's so like we're not going to be able to verify any sort of distance on that. Now how it functions,
Okay. So definitely satellites can manipulate the information. Okay, I'll agree with that 100%. Every machine is fallible. Let's just ask the minion.
yeah,
So my question is, where are the satellites though?
yeah, absolutely. So starting with Project Echo, they can already like relay signals and stuff like that. So there doesn't have to be like physical mechanisms for what they are like in the locations that they say to provide the services where they do. I'll provide a map here or like of GPS coverage and how it works, because they say they have this grid that covers the globe, and like you would imagine that it like completely covers the globe and all this stuff, but it's in like specific areas and stuff, and even within that, you run into situations where there's not coverage where there should be, but then you have people that say, no, I definitely used it on this place, and like so it gets very ambiguous uh, with that in terms of the like the mesh network coverage, right? That they say is available due to these 12 satellites that are in geosynchronous orbit or whatever, right? But I'll provide the some links here to show like that coverage map and stuff in a second.
And I wanted to add real quick that like those satellites that are up in the sky, like whatever they say they're doing, they could be saying they're doing one thing and they're doing something completely different. They're all controlled by the military, and the military's whole purpose is to spy on everybody, to make sure that everybody is in order, so that way there's nothing that they can't defeat. That's the whole point of the military. But the whatever, like the whole GPS thing, that can all be done with ground towers. It doesn't have to rely on satellites.
Yeah, and I would say for the most part, over terrestrial like local stuff, it's definitely facilitated by that. But I would also say that there's definitely like a relay balloon network system. I mean, when you start looking into the balloon programs and whatnot, I mean that's like where a large production of like there's a whole market in that's like not really talked about, dude. Like they make millions of these balloons that go up and stuff. So like they just send up equipment. They have ways to relay it. It's a very studied, science and stuff. Like they always if you start googling articles about like balloon projects and stuff, you'll see these like proposals to the public where they're like, Google or Facebook wants to put balloons or blimps over so and so country to provide internet service to everyone, and then they're like, oh, for some reason it just doesn't work out. We can't do it. Blah blah blah. Yeah, every day it's like they launch. I forget how many it is. It's like 1,200 weather balloons all over the world to gather data to corroborate stuff, and then they have a ground radar system called NextRad, which is placed at like I forget the elevation, but like let's just say 200 meters off the ground, just off the top of my head. So it's like not very high, but like so like they just have ways of corroborating all of these things that don't rely on satellite technology at all, and then uh or you like to even work in the way that they say it does, like it comes from space and all this crazy shit. um I don't know if you've ever used satellite internet, but I used to use satellite internet back in the day. Bro, it's the most unusable dog shit you'll ever experience in your life. It's not even real internet. It's like it's some sort of facade. It's it's so bad. And they have and then like 3G and 4G LTE, came available in my area, and that was like, I mean, I'm talking worlds of difference. I mean, not even close, bro. And right now they have this like Starlink program where they're saying Elon Musk has satellites or whatever. Is that what they actually say? Starlink is? It's satellites, right, that are launched in orbit. And
It's like
people,
a string of satellites.
yeah, and people, dude, you should see the speeds that people are getting from this string of satellites, bro. It's literally 1-to-1 like LTE speeds. Like it's not possible at all that they're at that distance. And and to just corroborate this, I've seen Starlink in the sky at night, like like what they call quote unquote Starlink, like at the distance you could like did I fucking parallax triangulate it? No, no, I have no idea what distance it was, but I did see lights in the sky that they say are that, and those lights in the sky provide LTE speeds. So I'm just here to tell you, dog, there's no way that that's a satellite. That's
You mean
that
they're
that
not
that
100 miles up?
that no way, bro. Not possible. Compared, no. And then like, oh no, the technology's better. Nah, bro. I know what latency is, bro. Once you understand that
Hey,
the ping difference is the same as LTE, it ain't coming from space, homie. Like that's GG right there. I played games my whole life that depend on ping, and when you play on satellite, dog, good luck, dog. Your life's over. You just retired from gaming. When you play on LTE, guess what, dog? You're semi back in the game. Like,
that's so funny, man.
so like it's not even possible. Like what they're like. That's just, and they're like, oh my god, it's so crazy. Like, yeah, dude, it certainly is.
And that's another thing people forget too when they talk about like geostationary satellites and like, oh, you're pinging off of this satellite, but it's at like a 45-degree angle, so it's cutting through more air than it would be if it was at your zenith. So there's going to be latency going at that 45-degree angle, like, and as the satellite, like, I don't know, moves away or whatever. I don't know. The whole thing seems really, really, really sketchy. Um, from my experience in the military, Ken, you could probably attest to this. Um, like, so when we did radio communication, um, we would use like repeaters if we had a long distance communication to communicate with. And that's basically what I see as satellite, like for like the higher up military, the elite military, whatever you want to call it, the people that have the authority and they want to make a communication instead of using ground cables or using communications through satellites, and they're just pinging from satellite to satellite using a repeater. That's what I think. I don't know. I can't confirm it. So yes, it's a belief, Ralph. All you globe earthers down there, oh my gosh, he believes in something. Yeah, I believe in things. But knowledge and belief are two different things.
Hey, yeah, and you know what else, dude? I'll give you another one for free too. There's this thing called like radio spectroscopy that people can do. Like you don't have to have like billions and trillions of dollars or whatever. Like obviously the readings you get are going to be kind of dog shit. But check
But
this
I
out.
still can't say that word spectroscopy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it'll get you. You got it. The spectroscopy. Um, so this guy has a YouTube channel, and I'll link it. It was pretty interesting. So they have like predictions for when these satellites and stuff are going to go overhead and whatnot at specific times. And this dude basically maps it out on like the radio signal of it. Like you can see it at the time given, and obviously differentiating the distances between like whatever. But it is interesting nonetheless that there was a thing in the sky that went by at the time that they said it would, and the guy pulled it up on the thing. And there's like a whole community that's dedicated to it. I forget what it's called, but there's like a whole GitHub for the stuff that they use, because they use a bunch of custom radio, blah 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 stuff. It's all like super nerdy and technical, but like it is very interesting. So like what it is, what the mechanism for it, and how it works. I mean, who knows if you ever heard of electrostatic tethering and balloon, like spider ballooning and stuff like that. I mean, if there's like a quote unquote firmament or some sort of magnetic flux line that they could tether something to, that's going over a plane. So I don't know if you've ever seen like the ISS orbit over an AE map, right? Where it looks like it's just going over what would it be called? Like magnetic flux patterns. If you look at a ferrocell and a magnetic pattern, like they're kind of identical. So it's like, is it tethered to something? Like, is there actually something that's tethered there? Who knows, man? It gets really up in the air for speculation. But do they
It's
absolutely
like a
have the?
spirograph. What are
Yeah,
those things called?
I don't know,
I
but
think it's a spirograph.
But it's like, do they have the technology to like, to quote unquote fake it till you make it? 100%, bro. So, I would that's my take on like what the satellites are and all that. And there's a really interesting video from a guy named Robert Bressano where he reads this declassified document, where this guy was part of this project called Project Corona. This was a project by the Air Force, and what these two gentlemen did is they had special clearance to go anywhere in the world and collect these balloons that had like satellite equipment on them, right? So like the satellite, they had like all the things that you would think a satellite can do: radio equipment, pictures, surveillance, recordings, you know, scientific instrumentation, all that kind of stuff. They had these all on balloons that they would send up there for long periods of time, and then they had a release system where they would catch it out of the air, like with the plane. So like similar to in the Dark Knight when Batman releases the thing and the plane sky hooks him out or whatever. That's literally what they were doing to catch these quote unquote satellites that were falling out of the sky, and they had like super top secret clearance and all that kind of stuff. And like the way that they were talking about it was like there was some instances where the gondola, they called it the gondolas, um, where the gondolas touched down and they had to recover it from the ground. And like, they were like, if any civilians see these, like, it was their job to smoke them. Like nobody could see what they were doing. It was that high profile. And there was an instance where the guy notes where they were at some air base, and the commander of that place wanted to board their ship and see and they had a gondola on there. And as the guy was like politely saying like, nah, you can't, like, you're not coming aboard, like the guy behind him, his partner, was like, he cocked his pistol and shit, was like ready to unload a clip on the dude and backed him down from coming in. So it's like the levels of like what goes on and like what we just find out about years later is like, crazy shit, right? So it's all interesting stuff.
I posted the Google satelloons, the satellite balloons Google was using. And we also have a guy that comes in here. He was in here, I believe, the other week, and he works on cell towers. His cell towers have GPS splitters that essentially do everything that they think these orbiting satellites are doing. And that was eye opening to have him come in and break it down to us. And you know what's even funnier? He's not even a flat earther. He's a globe earther who's working on this program and working on with this technology. And realize like, oh wow, it's not connected to nothing in space.
Yeah.
I have a question. I don't know whoever was speaking before. They mentioned that people are a that some there's a different like there's a distinction between like balloons and satellites, and you kind of said that we don't exactly know what these satellites are on a flat Earth. But he said that people are able to predict like exactly when they'll be able to see them and like take pictures and videos of them. If we don't know what they are or like their orbit, how are people able to predict their movement? I would assume that they use the globe model, but maybe you guys have a different answer.
No, it would be, so the observations would be based on like the angular size of it. So they would just have an a scale invariant system, right? So like you wouldn't be able to tell the distance based on the size, right? So like they're just gonna give you that, and it would like work out proportionally because it's based on something that you can't really verify. So like in terms of like, will it mathematically work out for the glob? Yeah, absolutely, and especially in the northern hemisphere specifically because of how uh, let's see. So like how closely the coordinate system was derived to match correction angles to Polaris, and what they could get away with in like in terms of making corrections to like hide areas and change land masses or whatever, or not change land masses, but like change like hide areas, right, where there could be extra land and stuff like that.
But on a globe, the satellites would be in orbit, meaning like there's an explanation.
Right.
Obviously, you guys don't think it's true, but on a flat Earth, like are they drones? Are they balloons? Like
No.
what? There's no orbit.
No.
Like
No.
there's no consistent pattern they'd be going in. Like in space, there's a predictable like based on like the laws of like the globe model, you'd be able to predict the orbit based on like the math of it. But on a flat Earth, I don't understand how there's any math to predict any orbit. Like it'd just be in any direction where the government wants them to be.
No, so that's a really good point, though, and that's where we get into the electrostatic tethering nature of it, where it could be following these magnetic flux lines. Because like where it is that predictable and that precise, that's where I'm like really intrigued with it too, because like it is that because like I'll link you like I see where you're having a little hang up on the scale invariance thing because once you realize that it'll blow your mind kind of you'll be like oh yeah okay makes sense what he's saying but like in terms of like the predictability of it if it's just over a flat like again if you pull up the ISS orbital pattern over an AE map, you'll see like what it looks like, and then just look at that next to a magnetic ferrocell, like an image of that, and you'll see like the fractal pattern looks the same. So if you could have technology to tether to something like that, like it would, you could definitely get in a quote unquote orbit over a plane, that would match and have predictability to it.
But I know globe earthers get mocked a lot for gravity. And go, oh, your magic gravity explains it. But it seems like you're just saying the same thing. Oh, well, there's this like unverifiable, like maybe like magic magnetic sphere in the sky. Like, how is that any different than gravity?
Well, it's practical technology that's applicable. Like they've, you know, like the
In the
idea that
sky?
yeah the idea that something's in like perpetual free fall but not accelerating and all this stuff it's like that requires like a whole different level of belief system whereas like
Is there any
electromagnetic
evidence
tethering
of
is yeah you can look up
in the
electromagnetic
sky?
tethering it's real stuff like that's real it's practical applicable technology and something that's in nature spiders utilize it
But at a scale, um,
yeah there's a huge charge potential in the sky brother
yeah, but that seems like that's not like a reason why something would float in the sky. It doesn't seem like at all. Like, is there any demonstration of of that technology making an object levitate?
Yeah, so you can change something's charge potential with, or charge, changing something's charge potential with the Van de Graaff generator. You could make it levitate it, and like I said earlier, balloon or spiders do it. It's called what do they call it? Electrostatic ballooning or something like that. Those,
Spider.
yeah, spider ballooning that does it too. So there's what's called
Australia is scary,
yeah, what
bro.
is it? A static electric equipotential gradient of electricity that's in a uniform linear gradient, right? That scales upward or that scales linearly. So like definitely not. It doesn't fall off at a what is it? 4 pi over r squared ratio. So it's definitely not coming out like a. It's definitely not spherical if you know what I'm saying. So like if you're familiar with Gaussian surfaces and all that, that linear charge potential gradient is actually facilitated by two flat surfaces. So that's a very interesting situation. But yeah, so we exist within that charge potential, and like it's like I said, spiders utilize that gradient. Provides that static electric mechanism
Don't bees do that?
that you were something was talking about earlier. Yeah, so like people think that like bees fly when they flap their wings. They actually create a resonant frequency that resist the wind and shit. So like they can fly in 20 or 30 per mile hour crosswinds just off of their uh, static electric frequency that they generate. So it's like are you levitating or are you flying? Like who knows,
30
right?
miles per hour?
30
What
miles per
the?
hour crosswinds, bro, while carrying mad pollen. Like because they're not they say like they're not aerodynamic and all that kind of stuff and like on top of that they're carrying pollen yet they're just flapping their little wings just chilling defying gravity or whatever so like there's a lot to it when you
Defying
get
gravity or whatever.
when you get into the electrostatic mechanics of it and like you start to see like resonant frequencies defy so-called gravity on like a scale that's manipulatable that you can actually interact with whereas like you can't bend space-time you can't do anything like that um on any sort of scale so it's like on the greater scale of like what's at the top of that charge potential where it's highest like could you tether some technology to it that you know that rides that like who knows bro who
So would you
knows
also say is that also an explanation for the moon and the sun floating in the sky?
no I don't think that those are physical objects I think those are polarizations that's projected in a magnetic field if you take the sun and map it to the latitude for an observer and then like wrap that in a 360-degree angle it makes a 3D hyperbola in the sky for every so
But
like I don't think it's a real thing I think it's just I
but
think it's something that
the
yeah go ahead.
sun produces heat though,
Is that what it does
right? Well, so like you think it's a coincidence that when the sun's out, it's like the sun's beaming down on you, you're really hot, and then when it's cloudy, it's not as hot.
When we're closer to the sun, do you think it's hotter or colder?
I mean, no, the air pressure is lower and it's colder. But like on a hot day,
No, I'm talking
like
about the
just like
seasons, bro, in the heliocentric model.
like can I finish this thought first?
Yeah, go ahead.
On a hot day, if the sun's out and clouds come, do the clouds provide relief from the heat?
Yeah, it's a focal point of energy, bro. It's not a physical thing.
Hey, Tum Tum, how does a massive sun 93 million miles away, when it's lighting up the sky and then a little tiny cloud passes in front of it, the entire area that you're under where it's shaded, it drops like 5 to 10 degrees on an object that's like massive.
I mean, like I'd assume like the heat of the sun, like the magnitude of degree change is actually not that significant. It's just significant to you because that's the amount you experience as a human is very minimal compared to like the part of the sun.
Man, you're reaching, bro. Anyway, what
am?
were you gonna say, Alan?
Yeah, I think some heat distributions of the sun's path. So you know how they say that there's an axial tilt, and that axial tilt relationship, changes the nature of our heat distribution relative to the distance of the sun. So like how you were saying earlier, when the sun and clouds, like where is the sun? How far away is it? What's our relationship to it? The heat distribution doesn't even match a glob based on the deflection angles for how they say that the seasons actually work based on the distance. And if you plot it over a flat map, you'll see a nice even distribution of how heat works.
So I'll concede that with the sun because the sun is a big blur of light, right? So like you could theorize about that. But the moon, just like I have no like it it looks like a big rock to me. Like it looks like a solid object, and it seems like
sure.
light shines on it.
But yeah,
So
to lay down
it
how I
seems
want to
like
structure this,
the
And here,
obvious conclusion just from looking at it is it's a solid object. Why would you be compelled to think it's not a solid object?
so if it's the same angular size as the sun, like it functions the exact same way. Like for eclipses, it's the same polarization type mechanism. I grant you, it does look like it has three-dimensional sphericity to it and stuff like that. But the fact that we all see it at the same angle, I mean, like the same side of it, no matter where we're at and all that, it's like if it were actually a sphere, the curvature dimensions of it would produce varying angles to it. So like that's why I don't think it's a real
Yeah,
object.
well, on a flat Earth,
One
on a
second,
flat
bro.
Earth it would.
One sec, home
Okay,
dog.
yeah, finish.
So
I
in
thought you were
this,
finished.
no, in the same respect that the sun presents itself in our azimuthal grid of vision, and it's an apparent situation, like that's why I said like these things aren't physical objects; they're focal points of polarization in a magnetic field. So like if you were to like the moon has the same kind of analemma relationship as the sun, and I haven't seen it plotted yet, but I bet if you were to plot that in the same way that you do with the sun, it would also make a 3D hyperbola in the sky. So, you know, that's my thoughts on the moon.
So you're right that the moon on a flat Earth, the moon is a solid object. People would see multiple angles of it, but the globe model actually explains that. So
If you don't mind, I could fully steel man the globe model's claim and destroy it simultaneously if you would like to skip ahead.
or if you're talking only about like keep it to the topic of like seeing multiple sides of the moon here.
Absolutely. So they say that this is done by the nature of tidal locking, and this is reified by a model that's produced to present the exact conditions to facilitate tidal locking, despite the fact that no experimental evidence has ever tidally locked anything into orbit
But your
verify
observations count. Your observations are valid, and you can see it. Like so.
But then you're trying to quantify what it is based off of that, though, and then
I mean,
but
so
you
like
can't.
you can see it's a solid object. The moon has craters that cast shadows, so you can see that.
You can see the sun has sunspots. It must be a solid object then.
No, sunspots are literally just like blurs of like darker spots. The moon has like three-dimensional craters that cast shadows. So that's why I would say the moon is definitely a solid object. And the globe model would.
So the sun isn't solid because of dark spots. Oh, that's just dark spots. Like, how can you sit there and say it's not a solid object just because dark spots and it doesn't mean it's a surface?
I know I think it's a solid object, but it's a lot harder to prove than the moon. So I would just defer to the moon to talk about.
It's a problem
California.
for the sun if it's a solid object, because if it is, that throws off all the
Well, like solid
orbital,
object
that throws
from
off
like
all the
flat.
orbital mechanics of the sun. It
Let me
can't,
let me.
by
There's a difference
definition.
between like what happens, like the model, and why. So like I don't think the what's up for debate. Like you can say like the moon is like in a rotation with the Earth, and that's what happened. What happens? The why is like, oh well, this like dark matter or nonsense or like different mathematical laws. People theorize about the why, and I think the why is always subject to change. But the what is something that you observe. You don't always know why, but you can observe what is happening.
Yeah. So on that, here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll end on the moon. The moon, like all celestial objects, move across the sky, and that's measured in arc seconds. And you can measure, the speed of that. You can get a speed out of that. Can you get a radius of an orbit and all that kind of stuff? Absolutely not. So all of that is just extrapolated through reverse engineering of kinematics that don't have any bearing on any physicality of what that they attribute to the moon, right? So the moon does, look a certain way, right? But it also, you know, believing that that object is of the physical nature that it is requires a belief in a bunch of other unsubstantiatable claims when you reverse or like when you look back at it, right? Like, and I
Hey,
can link the
Al,
video that I did on the moon.
But Alan, you can see the moon's a solid object. Non-solid objects don't have three-dimensional craters that cast shadows. So let's take it down to its basics. Let's like pretend like we don't know the math, like the exact math of the orbit, the distance. You can see them as a three-dimensional object that light
where
shines on,
where did
and
the
you can
craters come
see.
from, Tum Tum?
I don't know. I wasn't there when they were created.
What's the
Uh,
story that we were told that the craters came from?
Hold on a second,
uh,
bro. Let me.
Asteroids is the story
Asteroids,
I was told.
right? Why
Comet
is it
impact.
right? Why is it on the side that faces towards us and not away from us?
Because I'm assuming asteroids have come in between the moon and the Earth and been pulled into them by the moon's gravity and crashed in on all sides.
But they're 90 degrees, so the asteroids would have had to hit the moon at a 90-degree angle
Well,
going through us.
Alan, there's a difference between what happened in the past, and what I can observe. I can observe craters. How they
Do
came to
you?
exist is
Yeah.
a speculation in my mind. I
That
don't really care.
okay. So with craters, right? Do you observe any dust rings? Like, do you remember how they say Saturn got dust rings and everything gets dust rings and all that stuff? So if a
Yeah,
giant
yeah, I don't.
object impacted the Earth and created the moon and all that stuff, like where's all the dust rings? If it was bombarded by, asteroids to create all these massive craters, like where's the dust rings from that? Like
So Alan,
there's nothing.
maybe God just made the moon look like that.
I mean,
It
that's
doesn't. I don't care why or how they came to exist. I can observe they do exist, and I can observe light does shine
well,
on them.
you're trying to retroactively determine based on what it looks like to fit the cause of how it got there to,
No. I'm saying it looks like light shines on it, and I can prove light shines on it. So light does shine it. I'm not talking about why, like the history of the moon. I'm just saying, you look at the moon today. You can see
you can.
light shine on the craters and cast shadows. So the moon is a solid object. That's the only conclusion I'm drawing.
All right, cool, man.
Is that a reasonable conclusion? Like,
Yeah,
why is that not a reasonable conclusion?
I didn't say it was. You said, "What do
But
I think about it?" And I told you,
well,
and then you're saying that it's
but
a physical
like
object, and
okay,
I'm saying I have a
well,
differing opinion.
Alan, how is it that the moon's craters cast shadows at different angles depending on like the apparent light shining on the sun? Like, how is that explained?
So we all see them at the same angles, too. So you wouldn't be able to explain any physicality of that. We would see the shadows at different angles relative to different people. So like the physicality that you're trying to attribute to these craters and all
No.
that is
The
super
sun's only
misguided.
shining. The sun's only shining at one point at one time. So
Right.
anybody looking up at the moon would see the shadows shining at the same angle on the moon.
You're gonna see the shadows at different angles, dog. So if the stars change at 1 degree per 69 miles, people are definitely gonna see the shadows at different angles, but they all see the same thing.
No. It's the sun shining on the moon, Alan, not the stars.
still not differentiating from what I'm talking about.
So, Alan, if the sun is shining on the moon and casting a shadow in a certain direction, everybody on Earth would see the sun casting the same direction on the moon.
The shadow
Your
within
perspective,
the shadow within the craters that you're talking about though would change varying
yeah.
to the observer, right? But it doesn't. So like
No, 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 no,
that's why
no,
I
wait,
don't think it's a
Alan.
physical
Alan,
object.
a shadow does not change your
Listen, bro. Like, you can't sit there and say you don't want to be interrupted and then interrupt somebody. Like, let somebody finish their thought, bro. I know you're attached to this moon, and that's like your best proof and your only proof due to your understanding. But if you're gonna engage in a conversation, you gotta let people finish their thoughts.
Yeah, and again, I'm not even saying that you attributing physicality to it in the way that you are is like, wrong. You can definitely see things, right? I'm saying I have a different interpretation of it in that it's not physical in the way that you think it
let me,
is. It's a
okay,
polarization of light. So what you're interpreting as a shadow inside of a crater, I'm interpreting as a polarization of light where you're not seeing it, right? So who knows what it is, bro? That's all.
this is what I like to do. Look up a picture of a crater on Earth and then look up a picture of the crater on the moon. They're the same. And to address the earlier point, Alan, about people would see the shadow of the craters differently. If the sun's like on Earth, if the sun's shining on you, and you cast a shadow, let's say you cast a shadow at a certain spot, you could move around, and that shadow would still be on that exact same spot. So
Yeah,
like
but
the shadow wouldn't change.
you're not understanding, Tum Tum. If somebody sees your shadow on the ground, if they change their position relative to, like, if you change your position relative to them, your shadow is going to be cast at a different angle. That's what he's trying to tell you.
No, the shadow's not cast at a different angle. The shadow's taking up the exact same amount of space.
If you are looking at me, standing at me, looking at me, you see my shadow on the ground, and then I move into a position that is different from where I was standing before, the angle of my shadow is going to be different to you. That's what he's
Oh, if
saying.
you move, yeah. If you move, yeah.
Yeah, the moon is moving, so the moon's shadow should change.
Yeah, as the moon shadows do change, and as it changes, everybody sees that.
It should change as it moves
On a
across
half,
the sky.
Alan, on a half moon, sometimes the sun shines in one half, and sometimes it shines in the other half.
Does it
And the
change as it
shadows
moves through the
change
night, or is it
accordingly.
changed on that night that it's there, that as it appears? Is it the same all throughout the night, or does it change throughout the night?
I believe it's the same. I mean, I think there's slight change, but I think it's generally the same. Like I've never seen
I,
a half moon turn into a full moon. I don't know.
yeah, you should look into that because it's a huge distinction as
Either,
to why I
either,
don't think it's a
well,
physical
no,
object, my dude.
you can see it's a physical object though. Like you
I
can
mean,
see
we
it. So
just
so
we
this is the
just went
thing.
over a big
So
determining
Alan,
factor
no,
for you, and then you
Alan, this
just
is
are
the
like,
thing.
but it's
So
physical.
no. So either some god or somebody is trying to trick you by making the moon look exactly like a physical object and look at exactly like sun is shining on it, or it just is what it looks like, you know.
I don't think anyone's trying to trick me, bro. I think it's a heavenly object that's put there so I can see it, and that
Alan,
it's easily
But
distinguishable from other heavenly bodies. As to who put it there and what it
can
like
you
all that, like I didn't make no claims about that, bro. That's you.
Alan, do you mind if I ask Tom
do
Tom a
me a
question?
favor?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely, bro. Go
let me
ahead.
just finish this. Let me just
All
finish this
right,
thought
so
with Alan.
I have
Hold on.
Can
Let
I
Tom.
finish
Tom,
the one
slow
thought
down,
with Alan?
slow down, Tom.
Can I
So
finish
let's
one thought?
different.
Just
Let's
like
slow
one.
down.
Hold on 1 second, Nate. Just let him finish his thought, and then we get
Yeah,
right to you.
yeah. Let him get his last thing in
Um,
real quick.
Alan, I would plead you to Google moon craters, right now and see if it looks like a solid object or not. That's all I'll say.
I would plead you to look into the shadow thing because it was the biggest substantiation to why you think it's a physical object. All right.
Just look at the pictures. Okay, Nathan, you can ask a question.
All right, so Tom, we need to clarify two things. You were actually talking to two people just now. You were referring to Alan when you should have been referring to Sheepdog. I don't know if you noticed that, but it seems like you're so wrapped up in your own self that you couldn't even realize that you were talking to two different people. That's the first thing. Can you mute your mic while other people are talking as well? Because it causes feedback. Tom.
Oh yes. Yeah, sorry about that.
Cheers. Yeah, thank you. All right, so the second thing is you need to substantiate your claim that the moon is a solid object. Now, you are under the impression that it is.
So, okay, cool. You say your craters prove your theory. So I'm going to ask you this. If your moon is a solid object, then explain to me how then stars and planets can be seen through it. That's the first thing. Second thing is you need to substantiate your claim that it is the sun that is lighting up the moon. You need to either clarify that whether it's the sun directly or the sun's light, as in the sunlight, daylight. Yeah. And then you need to prove that it is actually lighting up the moon.
Yeah. I think this would be helpful. Host, can I post in the thread up above here, or does somebody else have to do that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
so
for it.
Yeah,
basically,
can you one sec, can you answer about the stars or the planets being seen through the moon? I would like to
I
reply
don't
to that.
I don't believe that's the case, and I've never seen any
Well,
any demonstration.
yeah, it doesn't matter what you have seen or haven't seen. It's documented. So I mean, you can say, "Oh, I haven't," but it's been documented by other people. So what say you to that? If your moon is a solid
The
object,
Royal
no, but if
Astronomical
your moon,
Society.
yeah. So this is not just like random flat earthers.
People have
So
documented like Elvis after his dad, Bigfoot.
yeah, no. Don't see. This is what I mean. Why you got this? Is how see. I don't have. This is just dishonesty now. People like this guy here, he tries to control the conversation and then bombard people and
I'm
like
answering
be
your
all
question, buddy.
aggressive. No, you ain't. You're not. You're being dishonest. But it's
You
okay.
don't trust
We
this
know who
source,
you are now.
or are
At
you
least we know who
aware
you
who
are
they
now.
are?
No,
That's a
no.
credible
My
source.
opinion. You asked for my opinion. My opinion is I have not been provided with substantial evidence to convince me the moon. You can see stars through the moon, and your opinion is there is substantial evidence. So that's just what it is, man. You can't say I'm dishonest for having an opinion and not seeing
Okay,
evidence.
but let's just hypothetically say that, all right, it is a fact, because we know it's a fact. But
I
hypothetically,
don't.
let's say no,
Stop.
I know,
Wait.
but
Okay. Wait.
hypothetically,
Stop.
just
Stop.
answer
Stop.
the question.
You can't.
Hypothetically, no. Don't try to control the conversation, Tom Tom. So hypothetically, because I know it's a fact, I'm asking you to just play along with me and say, if it is a fact that you can see stars or planets to the moon, would that still make your moon solid or not?
No. I mean, like that's
All
like
right.
saying
Okay.
hypothetically, like
All right. Now that's what I
hypothetically.
wanted
Wait.
to hear.
Stop. Stop.
At least you
Nathan.
know, because then that
Nathan.
establishes some form of
Nathan. Let me finish
reasonability
my. Let me
with
respond.
you. That's
Nathan.
all.
Let me respond.
I'll link it
Can I
to you.
respond?
It's okay.
Can I finish my thought? Like I don't think I think it's a dishonest question. Because I don't believe that's the case. So
No,
like
it
Nathan, stop.
establishes who
Let
you
me
are.
finish.
It establishes.
Nathan.
Don't tell me what to do. It establishes whether you're honest or dishonest. That's what it does.
Let me finish my answer, please. Okay. Let me explain why that question. I don't like that question. Okay, and then you can respond. That's
It
like
doesn't matter
asking.
if you don't like the question or not. It really doesn't matter.
That's why I'm addressing your question. I'm addressing why I don't think it's a valid question. Why I don't think it. Okay, so like that's like asking like hypothetical like pretend like the Earth is flat. Do you think you're a flat earther? It's like, well, I don't believe the Earth is flat. I don't believe you can see through stuff through the moon. So like that's not something I'm willing to grant just because you think it's true. I don't think it's true. I think it's pretty obvious from pictures that the moon is a solid object. Obviously, you have a different opinion. I'm not being dishonest for having a different opinion than you. And you can't just declare that I know something that I don't know.
Like
And
to like to chime in
how do I
real quick.
how do I post? Wait, just one. How do I
Yeah.
post stuff? Can I post stuff like it's like on the top? How does that work?
So if you post something on your Twitter and then if you click share, click on share to space, and then it'll post up in the jumbotron thing, and then it'll be up there. And while you're doing that, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about the stars through the moon situation because I looked into it pretty extensively, and I was not able to find any substantiatable claims. The best thing I could find, because like, well, in terms of like modern, right? So I did find references from Aries, George Aries, 1872. Where him and his research assistant were going over a catalog of instances where they said that starlight was seen going through the moon. So similarly to how there was the Einstein prediction, so-called, with the gravitational lensing, where the starlight was going to be bent by the sun during in the eclipse or whatever. So there was this apparent history of starlight being bent through the moon on like no eclipse, just it would just happen sometimes, and it would be at like varying degrees of arc seconds. It would jump around like way without or way exceeding the confines of like any sort of gravitational effects or refraction or whatever. And him and his boy went over it or whatever, and came to the conclusion that this must have been some sort of like observational technical error, due to the equipment that they were using, and that it wasn't real. And I feel like if the claims were substantiated, that we would have, like, with modern technology, I mean, it would be kind of hard to cover up the stars coming through the moon, like, So that's my 2 cents on it.
The only article that I found came from the Royal Astronomical Society. It was some letters that was sent back and forth to some of the head honchos over in that organization, and yeah, they were discussing making some observations back a few hundred years ago. I don't know of any current articles that say the same thing. Just to agree with Alan, but that was the extent of my research. There have been some videos floating around. Some people say, "Oh, I know it looks like those are stars, but it's really hot pixels in the photo." I don't know. It looks like stars to me. But if you're talking about official documentation, the Royal Astronomical Society published something, and I don't know what the standards are for the Royal Astronomical Society, but I don't know if they would publish something that wasn't true, and at least in their system, right? I don't really know how that works, though. Pride, if you could throw that up there for me, I appreciate it.
But I think Alan's right. With modern technology,
Can I
the
say
fact that
something to
it-
Tum Tum?
Yeah, let me finish this. That like with
Is my
with
thing working?
anybody with like a grand just to change can buy a telescope. Any it'd be you couldn't hide the fact if stars shine through the moon. And I know that the things the host. How should I refer to you, host? Is there do you have like a name you go by?
Yeah, SACRED, sacred, or you can call me
Okay, I got,
Peace.
okay. Sacred. So like I know the videos and pictures you talk about, and they're very questionable in the fact that they're not like super high quality pictures of the moon.
So,
I feel like
Tum Tum,
with like with
my
telescope.
mic keeps going in and out, I think, but kind of we keep
Can I
listening to
finish?
stuff.
Let me
Hey,
finish.
bro,
Hold on, Mr. Stark. Can you hear Tum Tum?
Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't.
Drop back out and come back in because he's talking right now.
Okay.
With the fact that like anybody can have like even like not even telescope, like there's Nikon cameras, like you could zoom in super close to the moon, and I would expect videos of like super like high quality videos where you could see stars to the moon, and the moon is obviously transparent. And I think modern technology would prove the moon was transparent and you could see stars through it. I don't think like a couple of pictures and videos of like the moon like decently far away and some like flickers of light prove it, when like I would expect like on YouTube, if you go like videos of the moon through a telescope and you could see like the craters like super close, I'd expect you to like see that and like, oh look, there's like a freaking star like shining right through the moon. But I've never seen any demonstration of that, so that's why I don't believe stars. To answer your question, Nathan, that's why I don't believe you can see the stars through the moon.
I think just to clarify, the claim is that the moon is translucent more than it is transparent.
Yeah, that's a poor choice of
Kind of
wording. But the idea is that you would see stars shining through the moon, and I think if that was true, anybody could prove it. And I don't think anybody has, other than like a couple of questionable pictures and videos. So I agree with Alan that if I think I think there is some interesting like reports from the past, but with modern technology, we have the convenience of having like things recorded and pictures taken. So if it was true, I would expect like I would expect there to be a ton of evidence from globe earthers and flat earthers, all just making the same observation.
Can I say something about the parallax to the moon real quick?
Was that Jonathan? Yeah, go ahead, bro.
I heard someone bring up the point that if the moon was physical, spherical object, that different people on Earth would see drastically different angles of it, especially on a flat Earth. And I want to also say that even on a globe Earth, with the moon being 240-ish thousand miles away, you would still get a slight change in the angle that you're seeing, or the features on the moon that you're seeing from that part of the Earth. It would shift just slightly, and it's easy to predict using a little bit of math, a little bit of trigonometry. So I'm really curious if I could get some people to do a little experiment, maybe find some people with Nikon P1000s, or maybe even a telescope with astro photography equipment, to take a picture of the moon in as high definition as possible, a full moon that is visible in the night sky in the early night hours for one person on some country, and then about 5,000 miles away, let's say, someone else is taking a picture at the same moment. So, hey buddy, I'm taking the picture now, and text each other back and forth, coordinate it so you're taking it at the same time. What you could then do is examine those high definition images, identify which side of the moon is the most crisp, not fading into a shadow, let's say, but and then you could measure from that edge to a very distinct feature, and if it shifts, by my calculation, 1/100th of the diameter of the moon, that would be a very strong verification of what kind of parallax you would see from a moon that was 240,000 miles away. It would just be an interesting experiment if somebody could get on board with it.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is I'm not like the best at math. But I know on the globe model says the moon is 100,000 miles away. And then I took like the Earth's radius, so like the max distance that two people would be when they would both see the moon, which would be like 8,000 miles. And the total distance change of that 8,000 miles compared to the 100,000 miles would be 0.03. So like the total distance changed that a person from the Earth, the total distance from up, maybe I'm saying this wrong, but the amount of change of perspective that you would see on a globe model is like 0.03%. So like that's so small that I don't think anybody would really notice it. But I think you're right. Maybe like with a super high quality, you could notice a slight change. But my only point is that I know you guys have a lot of problems with the why and like the theories of how the globe model works. But I'm just saying, like, of what is happening, it makes logical sense to me that the moon would be a solid object and everybody would see the same size. You guys tell like gravity, dark matter, and all that. Like it doesn't, like the theories of why it happens doesn't work out. But I just say like the what happens makes logical sense with what I observe. So that's why I would believe the globe model on that scenario.
Good for you. Good for you, Tom Tom. Good for you.
Well, I think I could agree that like the like take away the why and just say like what, like if like take away like any, you don't know why, how gravity works, if like just like the idea that like the moon is 100,000 miles away and it's orbiting the globe, you would see what we see. Does anybody disagree with that? Take away
Yeah,
the why.
I
Just like we would see exactly what we observe on the Earth. Like exactly. That's why I'm convinced of the globe model. And I think the flat Earth, what we would see based on the flat Earth model, I don't think it works out. And you guys have an explanation for everything. So like the moon isn't getting smaller as it gets farther away. You can come up with some explanation, like the sun goes beyond the curvature of the Earth. You could come up with some explanation And I can't really disprove those because I don't know that much, but I just say like the most common sense understanding of what I observe lines up perfectly with a globe model, and you could come up with other explanations, but most of them seem to rely on like optical illusion, like even though it looks like the sun's going beyond the curvature of the earth, even though it looks like the moon isn't getting farther away, it actually is. Where I say like, oh, it looks like the moon's not getting farther away as it sets, and it looks like it's a solid object, so I'm going to assume that's true, and the globe model provides a perfect explanation of what is happening, maybe not why, but what.
I wouldn't say perfect. It's incomplete at best.
What would you say, like from your own observations, the globe? I mean, I guess you could say your laser tests might question, but I think everything in the sky astronomically, I think the globe model proves with incredible accuracy that the flat Earth model. I think the flat Earth model is just simply logically impossible. Obviously, you disagree.
What does anything in the sky have to do with what's underneath your feet?
Can I explain that? So when I'm on the ground on this huge planet, like I've traveled in a plane, it's massive. I have like just looking at the ground. I mean, I know I could do like laser tests and stuff like that, and like, but there's like refraction and crazy stuff. So like, I have no clue what the shape of the Earth is. Um, but there's like celestial objects in the sky that are interacting with us. So we can observe how they interact with us, and the model of the Earth would predict what we would observe. So we can have different models that would predict how we see these celestial objects. And the model that predicts exactly what we see, let me finish this thought. The model that predicts what we see would inform me to the shape of the Earth. Because I'm too tiny, Alan, to see the entire shape of the Earth. I'm assuming you are too.
Wait,
This is Sheepdog. This isn't Alan. So.
Sorry, I'm Alan as well.
On Truth Social, you said your name was Alan, so sorry about that.
Hey, Tom, do you mind if I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I wasn't done, by the way, but go ahead.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead, Sheepdog.
No, I just I just wanted to kind of like reiterate what Tom said. Like, he's got all these observations of the sky, and he has no idea what's going on underneath his feet, and that's a fair observation, right? That is a fair observation. I look around me on Earth. I see trees. I see grass. I see water. I see all these different things. I see buildings. I see homes. I see people. I look in the sky. I don't see any of that. I don't see any of that. So what does anything in the sky have to do with what's underneath my feet?
This wonderful.
I just explained that, Sheepdog.
Let's go through it real quick.
No, you
real quick tutorial on how all
agreed with
stars
me
work,
that you
right?
don't know what's
Now,
underneath
this
your
film,
feet.
this little
let me try explaining.
And I
Let me try
appreciate
explaining
that.
one more time.
No. I appreciate that you said that because it's true.
I think
Whatever you see in the sky, we can look in the sky.
misrepresenting
We can speculate. I'm not done talking. We can speculate about whatever is going on in the sky, but what we come to know here on Earth, we can go out and measure, we can go out and test, we can go out and observe, we can do all kinds of things, but we can't do anything with anything in that sky other than just like observe and watch its repetitive motion day in and day out. That's it, Tom. End of story.
So Sheepdog, what I said is looking at the ground, I don't know much about the entire shape of the Earth. But looking at the sky, you actually do, because the sky isn't like, we have brains and we can come up with models that predict things, and we can come up with like logical explanations for things. So I don't look up into the sky and just say, oh, look at these magical objects. I say, okay, let's observe how these objects interact with Earth. And based on that, we can make a coherent model of the entire Earth. So we're not just looking up at like things aren't magic in the world. I mean, maybe some things are, but as far as I understand it, everything can have an explanation ultimately, even if we are wrong. So when we look at the celestial objects, can I finish the thought?
Yeah.
When we look at the celestial objects in the sky, we don't have to assume they're magic and that we'll have no explanation for them. We can make a model for the Earth and say, based on this model of the Earth, does our observations for this celestial object make sense? Like, based on the model of the globe, does our observations for the moon's existence make sense? And I'd say yes. But I'd also say, based on the model of the flat Earth, does our observations for the moon make sense? And I'd say no. And what I do is I use my own reasoning. So like logically, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't just pretend like the stuff in the sky are just magic and I have no explanation for them.
I
I
don't
can't
pretend that
see
either,
it.
Tom.
Okay. Okay. So maybe I misrepresented you there, and I apologize.
You do all the time, dude.
Can I quickly check
Every single time. Wait, real quick. I'm just going to end this real quick. I'm going to land this point. Tom, when you said okay, well, maybe I misrepresented you. This is correct. You misrepresent us all the time, because when you say what is the sun and what is the moon, we say I don't know, and that's the end of the story. And then you say, well, what do you think it is? Well, then we can elaborate, because now we go on a belief system of what we think might be going on up in the sky based off of the observations of what we've seen in other experiences. But when you sit there and say, well, what do you know about the moon, or what do you know about the sun? It's a thing in the sky, bro. It's a thing in the sky.
Can I respond one? Can I finish this conversation with Alan?
This is good. Go ahead.
Alan, I could be wrong about your position, so maybe I'm completely wrong about this. But from what I understand, you don't just say you don't know. You firmly
You're talking
reject.
to sheepdog. You're talking to sheepdog.
No, he's been stalking me since True Social, dude. This guy has like followed me
It's
everywhere.
not stalking. Your profile name was Alan. Your profile name was Alan. Okay.
He search me up on True Social under Sheepdog Legend and say, oh, his name's Alan.
Damn, you follow him around the different platforms? What the hell?
No. I had a Truth Social account and I had a Twitter account. It's not that big a deal.
Are you telling me there's 3 Allens?
You've been following me
There's
everywhere.
3 Allens in here right now. Yes, there is.
Okay, yeah, I can see how it's confusing.
Simultaneity.
I can hear that's confusing. Okay, so Sheepdog. From my understanding of, and I think this is I don't think this is every flat earther, but I think it's, I might say most flat earthers.
Don't speak about most flat earthers, dude. You're talking to me.
Okay. So from what I understand, your position is that you don't just say I don't know what the moon and the sun is. You'd firmly reject the idea the moon is a solid object because you have knowledge in the Bible, and the Bible says it's a light. Doesn't the Bible say it's a light?
The Bible does say it's a light, but that's not what I
You mentioned the Bible.
What?
Let the record show you mentioned the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, because the Bible.
Can I just quickly
the Bible is a form of knowledge. It's a form of knowledge.
Tom, I'm here to support you, mate. These like insane nut jobs have been trying to.
Hey, Tom, before you get going on your little rant, I just want to ask you one question. You say, you know what I'm saying, you use your
Can you hear OV?
Ah, damn, hell no, I can't hear him.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Drop down and come back up. I'll bring you back up.
Thanks, man. Tom, mate, these insane nut jobs have been trying to tell me the Earth is flat, right? Only because I'm in Australia, right? So I've been pissing upside down for like my whole life. I've mastered it, right? I don't know how, but you get quite good at it. But dude, look, I'm just fucking with you. Listen, I want to ask you: have you travelled overseas?
No, I haven't traveled overseas.
You've never travelled overseas? Look, mate, I've been to 25 countries.
You've traveled all over the planet, Tom.
Mate, there isn't a single fucking time. Once you jump on a plane, you know how, that plane is always tilted a few degrees up. That's just one of many things. But I'm not gonna focus on that. I want to ask you simply: when you cross the road, if you did cross and you're jaywalking, do you not get hit by a car? What stopped you from not getting hit by a car? Tom, you want to chime in?
Wait, what? You're asking what stops me from not getting hit?
Yeah, if you cross the road on a busy intersection, and what prevents you from getting hit by a car? Like, what do? Like, you look, you use your judgment, right? You use your eyesight. You kind of estimate. You just estimate how far. You're not going to be 100%, right?
Yeah.
Mate, the one thing that I tell people, like, if I can convince people of the biggest lie, it's this one video I edited. Unfortunately, I can't put anything in the chat bubble because I got too close to the truth in the last space, and I just can't do it. It's disabled the feature. But I'll send it to Sacred, and he could put it up in this. But mate, there are 2 amateur videos. A gentleman standing on the shore and using a optical zoom to zoom in on the sun, and another gentleman that was in a flight. And it looked like the plane was almost literally flying over the sun, right? Now, if you believed in the flat Earth model, you could download the app and you could see how the sun orbits the firmament, and then everything makes sense. It makes sense how it could get so close to the sun. But I want to ask you this: can you even use your imagination to try and imagine what 150 million kilometers looks like, Or sorry, if you're American, 93 million miles. Like to go from the top of Australia to the bottom, I think it's maybe 7,000 kilometers. Like, and not just that, it's not just the distance of the sun, it's also what the Earth is doing. Man, dude, they teach you about like they teach you everything about the solar system when you're in kindergarten in year one, and you think you could be Batman and Superman, you think Santa Claus is real, and your imagination is running free. Because once you look at the facts of what they taught you, it is nothing short of sorcery, some Harry Potter wizardry shit, right? And why would they lie to you, dude? To distance you, if you're not religious, I'm going to park this, but they're lying to you for letting you know that we are a speck of dust, we are insignificant, we've got limited resources, the fossil fuels, all the dinosaurs fucking made that oil, right? Mate, there are Arabs that have gone on the record and said everything they've told you about mining oil is all bullshit. We've got an infinite supply and all this sort of stuff. Do you not understand you are enslaved through energy? And wait until the next couple of years, dude. They're going to restrict your fucking carbon, right? Because it's this fear campaign. They're selling you a lie. They've enslaved you. We used to, the history's been the biggest lie. All those old 1,000-year-old buildings, they weren't built during that time, during the horse and cart era. They don't even in today's times, they can't build it. Energy was free, food was abundant, and what you've been taught is what's considered indoctrination. I got expelled from school, I flunked school, but after I left, I ran 3 companies that became successful. You know how you become an entrepreneur? You have to think differently. You have to think outside the box. Part of the reason why Sacred and a lot of these groups are so committed to this, because they want you to think differently. Because we have been programmed to be factory workers. Start school at this particular time, wear this uniform, this is your recess break, this is your lunch break. Just make you smart enough to follow orders, but not smart enough to break away from the system. Mate, bottom line is, I'm going to land my plane on this. The government have been on the record where they've lied about 100 different things. Imagine that was your girlfriend. Imagine each lie equated to your girlfriend cheating. How many times would your girlfriend have to cheat before you go, no, fuck this bitch, right? This is the point that we're making. It is hard. It was hard to be an anti-vaxxer. It is hard to be a flat earther. And you know what? Only reason I became vocal, because one time I liked one post and then I got attacked by one of my followers. You're crazy. I was like, bitch, what the fuck did I... Like, all I did was like a post. I was like, no, fuck this. Gloves are off. I'm joining my group. By the way, I just left a space with a bunch of COVID idiots, you know what I mean? The moment I mentioned the vaccine, 700 of them started attacking me. So I'm happy to be part of my tribe. And I don't know if everyone that's a flat earther is unvaxxed, but the flat earth pages he always allude to it. And even if he did get the vax, there's no judgment on my end. Because those
can I respond to one of your claims that you made in that?
Yeah, you go for it.
So maybe my how I do like my beliefs is wrong, but I think you misunderstood me. I think it's fallacious to say, and I don't think you were saying this, so don't take me as like me projecting this on you. But like this is what I believe. Like just because I was taught something, and it's like the government. I mean, like you could say public schools are the government because they are. I went to a private school, a private Christian school, to be fair.
The Rockefeller Foundation that runs the education system. Continue, go.
Yeah. Well, I know most people didn't like. I got taught at my private Christian school the basic same things except for like evolution and all that. But like globe model and all that, physics. I'll just refer like to the public education system. Just because they tell you something, doesn't make it wrong. And just because they tell you something doesn't make it right. What I do is I did grow up with a bias of information that they told me is true, but I use my observations and my ability to research things to see if it's true. And I don't assume. I know the government tells lies, but the government doesn't always lie. Like they told me about in mathematics and like basic physics. That's 2 + 2 does equal 4. Yeah, I know that's a
Bro, I can.
conflict with
They
flat earthers.
lied about math too, but continue.
With math, okay.
Did you get the
But okay, let's take something more. Let's take something. Let's take something more basic, like math. Okay, 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, they
1
taught
+
me
1
that.
= 3, bro. I can prove it.
Bro, in America it equals 5. 2 + 2 is 4. That's racist, dude. Don't say that. You get cancelled.
So this is this. Let me finish my point. They taught me that. Okay, they were right. That's true. So just because they teach me something doesn't mean it's wrong. They taught me the globe model, but like I said, my own observations say that the globe model is exactly consistent with what I observe in the flat Earth model. And this is just like my opinion on how I reason. The globe model is impossible. So I'm not. You seem to suggest that like, oh, like it's propaganda. Like you were taught that. Like, yeah, I was taught that. But I also believe it because it's logically consistent. Same with 2 + 2 = 4. I don't believe 2 + 2 = 4 just because they told me.
We play car because we use our judgment. I've got this one video and I'm looking thinking, this sun is not 100 or 93 million miles away. And not just that, there's that video in mainstream media. Every July, they say 99% of the population experiences sunlight. You know why that is? Because the sun has moved closer to the middle of the firmament. It is completely far from Australia. And you know the 3 countries that don't get sunlight? Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea.
So,
Our app
can I ask you a
validates...
question? Wait, can I ask you a question about that? So the sun covers like just like on average with like time zones, the sun covers like an insane amount of land. How high would the sun have to be to cover that amount of land, do you think? Like on average.
When something's flat, it makes it a lot easier. Something's a sphere, I'm very sorry. Anything part of maybe past the like if you split this sphere in half, you can't like wrap light around it just does not make.
Well, it would shine on half the sphere.
Yeah. Have you seen the Oprah segment where this I forgot, guys? Have you seen the Oprah segment where this lady got on and said everything about the proportions of the map is incorrect? Have you guys seen that? Do you guys want me to dig that up?
I don't think that matters. I don't care.
Yeah, dig it up, dude.
It does matter. It does matter.
Bring it.
Because
dig it up.
Well, can you explain
Dig
to
it
me
up.
why that would matter?
I'll find it.
That we're being lied to about where everything is located at? Yeah.
No. Well, I'm just saying like why somebody on Oprah we would value their opinion.
All right, let me ask you this, Tom, real quick before you go on your little rant. Because I
are you
want to
done?
know why we should value your opinion. Because
Yeah.
you tell us that
you're
telling us that.
I can answer that.
Hold on, bro. I just got one question, then I'll shut up for the rest of the space. I swear to God. You tell us that you use your observations of what you view in the sky to tell you what's under your feet, right? Or at least give you some kind of direction as to what you live on to prove it's a ball. But then you sit here and tell us that we can't use the rest of our senses to tell us what we live on. It's like you're just using one sense, which is your sight. I can use my sight. I can use what I feel. I can use what I hear. You know, it's more than one sense. And for you to just sit here and dismiss the rest like, oh, you can't trust your senses. Well, we can't trust your eyesight. And if you can't trust the rest of your senses, why the fuck should I trust your brain to come up with a conclusion on what you're observing with just one sense? Get the fuck out of here, bro.
I can explain why.
Backed up.
So,
You can't explain why, Tom.
wait. Yes, he addressed me. Let me respond to him, and then you can talk.
By all means.
So I understand your confusion. I'm not asking anybody here to value my opinion just on the mere fact that I'm saying it and I'm an awesome person, which I admit. I'm explaining my logic. So I'm saying
you're a stalker, bro.
Okay. I'm explaining my logic in the sense where I say like logically we only see one side of the moon. Logically, the shadows of the craters of the moon suggest the moon.
Bro, logically, I don't feel myself moving at fucking all when I step outside. That's actually why I don't. Logically, no matter how high I go, I never see a curve.
The motion of the Earth, but that's that's why I don't.
Logically, water never conforms around the outside of anything unless you're talking about something like a water droplet and you're talking about some bullshit surface tension. Logically, any large body of water needs a container as well as air. So when you talk about logic, bro, what logic are you talking about?
I would actually never come here and say and like try to argue that the Earth is spinning necessarily.
I wouldn't come in here and try to argue against known physics with bullshit, but I mean, you're doing a lot of bullshit right now. So I'm trying to see like where your standard of evidence is. And wherever your standard is, bro, you don't even stand on your own standard. That's what I'm trying to get you to see, bro. Everything that you're trying to get us to understand and all that, bro. Our observations match yours and proceed yours with more than one sense. We use more than one sense to make sense of the world that we live in, bro. You're using one sense and you're also using math. Tell me this: what's 1 times 1?
1.
Why? When the purpose of multiplication is to multiply everything. So if 1 is multiplied by 1, it should still be multiplied. Why is it still 1?
So multiplying is you're saying you're taking a number. So you're saying let's take the number 1.
I know exactly what they taught
and
you. They
let's
taught me
have
the
that
same
number
thing, bro,
one
but
time,
it doesn't
which
make
is
sense.
1.
That's what I'm telling you.
No. Let me explain. I can explain multiplication to you. So if you have the number 1, when you times it by 1, you're saying let's have this number exactly 1 time. So that's just
He
1.
knows the definition of it. He's
Know that,
asking why.
motherfucker. That's what I'm telling you. I'm
He's
saying that
saying
it
why.
doesn't logically
Why?
make
Oh,
sense.
like why? Why does that work? Because like it's just a good way of getting numbers. I don't know what it like you
Shut
can
up.
make it different. You can make a different kind
Okay,
of
I'm
math
going to
if
move
you
on to my
wanted,
next
but
point. I'm going to move on to my next point. When a detective accuses someone of a crime, what do? They interrogate them. And what do they expect them to do? To slip up with a lie, right? They ask them the same question if they get a different answer. Because there's a saying, if you're telling the truth, you don't need to remember anything. A lot of the people on this group that are part of, the Flat Earth, group of ours, we've witnessed astronauts being asked the same questions and then them issue different answers. You know what that means? They're there's they're making shit up. Because I know when you're telling the truth, your answer will always be consistent because you don't need to think of the lie. There have been so many occasions where people have been asked questions and we analyze that. You guys just buy into the narrative and you would never look into that. When
can you
we
show me one
analyze that
example
through
of
our
that?
detective work, sorry?
I just want to like have some precedent for what you're talking about. Can you like provide an example of an actual
They
lie?
asked a couple of astronauts about the stars. Did you see stars in space? One said, yeah, we saw plenty. The other one said no. When I was growing up, I was told the reason why boats disappear off the horizon because of the curvature. Right back then, there wasn't the kind of technology to zoom in on that, and then all of a sudden, the science changed. All of a sudden, we realized with perspective. If you use a high zoom lens, you could see it. Right. Neil deGrasse Tyson, man, the shit he's come up with, he's making shit up as he goes along. First it's round, the next minute, what did he call it? Like he was trying to say it's not 100% round, and that's how the waves work. And then when that Red Bull challenge occurred, right, there were inconsistencies in the footage when they're showing us space, like the fisheye lens sometimes warps the other way. Mate, there are so many inconsistencies, and the reality is, if you've been indoctrinated, you're just buying into the narrative, and you are ignoring all the inconsistencies.
I think you're misrepresenting what I said. I never said I believe the Earth is a sphere, because astronauts tell me it is, or that Neil deGrasse Tyson goes on Jimmy Fallon and says the Earth is a pear. That's irrelevant. I mean, like, so you're right that it diminishes the credibility of their claims. But every astronaut, humans could have never gone to space. Um, and Neil deGrasse Tyson could be a Freemason cultist, and I would still think the Earth is a globe because what I observe with the celestial bodies only logically works on a globe model, and because of that, I tend to not think astronauts are lying because I've already established based on my own internal logic of what I observe, the Earth is a globe, so I tend to not think most of them are lying. I know. I wouldn't like argue this point a ton, because I don't think I have like substantial evidence, but I tend to think they're not lying.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
It doesn't matter what you've been told. Logically, the Earth is a globe. If you think NASA's evil Satan trying to get you, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, NASA Hebrew for deception with the snake's tongue in there. Yeah, very trustworthy. Jonathan, go ahead, mate. You've had your hand up. Sorry, mate. We keep on talking over you.
Hey, before we continue, I'm gonna dip out real quick, or for the night. It was a pleasure, coming on and hanging out and meeting you, Tom. Hope you check into that stuff, and we could talk about it, next week or something. Do a little follow up or whatnot. It's a really interesting subject. I hope you get into it, man.
Don't worry, Alan. We've got another 2 Allens to fill in for you, buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude.
his name Alan.
That's crazy.
All right. Peace out.
Appreciate
Yeah.
appreciate
Peace.
you, Alan, man. Always
Peace,
a
bro.
pleasure. Always a wealth of knowledge. Y'all go follow Alan, space_audits. Check out his YouTube. Check out his page. He's dropping knowledge constantly, and it's all like original content. Super dope, super entertaining, super educational, and definitely appreciate you, bro. Shout out to the gang over there.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me on. You guys are awesome. This platform is so well curated. It's awesome. Like the Globers and the Flat Earthers interaction. Like it gets a little heated all the time, but it's all love in here. So it's
Yeah,
great.
but Tumtum's been good
It's a
compared
great
to other
time.
people. Tumtum, you've been good, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like to get. I guess some pretty epic insults.
And
Via
No,
text, but I
mate,
don't.
that's
Yeah,
why I love this group, Sacred and Proud.
Sometimes you give some pretty epic insults.
I do.
Like they're so
Mentally
respectful.
pretty good.
Like I love these guys. I've got so much respect for them. I always bring them in to other spaces because I feel like they approach anyone that opposes, has opposing views in the most respectful way. I love it.
We only respect insults when you come on the mic and say them instead of
I mean,
saying it from behind the keyboard.
I can say.
all right. Hope everyone had a good night. Had to record this one offline because I'm currently backing up Witsit's YouTube channel, so I wasn't able to stream tonight because I have it all automated through Telegram. It's already in a queue. It's just uploading videos in the background for me, so wasn't able to stream tonight. But yeah, awesome show. Flat Earth Fridays. Check out the boys here on Twitter. It's run by Sacred and Proud, Proud Flurf. Awesome people. They run a great platform. Check them out. All right.